Chapter 4692. Don't think you're the only one who's smart. Aobai coldly glared at Ao Shun. He wasn't happy that Ao Shun had interrupted him. Those strange insects are really dangerous. According to the sea tribe members who had escaped, they could even swallow the dragon chi. How could the dragon emperor survive in the mouths of those strange insects? If the crown prince didn't know about this, he wouldn't have let us patrol the sea. Stop arguing. Ao Ing was a little annoyed and said coldly, if you can't even work together, how can I be happy? Yes, I know I'm wrong. Aobai and Ao Shun both lowered their heads and answered. At this time, dozens of members of the dragon clan and groups of members of the sea tribe appeared in the distant sea. They were the subordinates led by Ao Ing. It seems to be Lingbo Reef in front of us. As the third prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Ing was very familiar with the West Sea. After releasing his Yuan thought, he could easily determine his position. Ao Shun immediately smiled and said, Your Highness really knows the West Sea like the back of your hand. This is the Lingbo Reef area. When I was a patrol envoy a few years ago, I came here. Ao Ing sighed. His dragon body swayed as he flew towards Lingbo Reef. He continued shouting, You don't know this. When this king was young, I was rather naughty. I once snuck out of the dragon palace with Aou. Coincidentally, the two of us ran into several sea lion beasts. Those sea lion beasts actually dared to provoke us, so we fought with them and chased them all the way here. Who knew that the Lingbo Reef was the nest of those sea lion beasts? We were careless and were surrounded by adult sea lion beasts. If not for the West Sea Patrol envoy who happened to pass by and rescued Aou and me, the two princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace would have died in the mouth of those sea lion beasts. Your Highness has such an experience? Ao Shun was slightly stunned, while Aobai beside him smiled faintly and said, Your Highness is from the Dragon Clan. If you survive a great disaster, you will have good fortune in the future. If that's the case, then Aou is also blessed. Ao Ing replied impatiently, Let's go and have a look. I remember when Ao Chen heard about this, he immediately led more than 10,000 subordinates to kill all the sea lion beasts. After that, I flew by here a few times but I didn't take a closer look. Crown Prince. Ao Shun opened his mouth wanting to say something, but he swallowed his words. This was because Ao Ing, who was in front of him, had already sighed. Time is like the waves of the sea. Once it passes Lingbo Reef, there is no turning back. Lingbo Reef is still Lingbo Reef, but the West Sea Dragon Palace is no longer the West Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Ing flew to the front of the Lingbo Reef and saw that the sun was setting. Arrows of light that were like blood shot down and dyed the reefs big and small into a strange blood-brown color. It looked like a layer of rust had covered the entire world. Ao Ing let out a long roar and pounced on one of the reefs. With a curl of its body, it crashed into one of the reefs. With a loud rumble, the reefs collapsed and fell into the sea, disappearing in an instant. Ao Ing laughed and flew into the depths of the reefs, just like when he chased the sea lion beasts with Aou in the past. Ao Shun and Aobai looked at each other and didn't dare to get too close to Ao Ing. The two dragons waved their dragon claws and dozens of dragons moved at the same time, flying over from both sides of the reefs. As for the thousands of members of the Sea Clan, they naturally formed a team and cautiously rushed into the reefs. The wind whistled and the waves crashed against the rocks. Because the gaps between the reefs were different, the waves were naturally different in size. The sound of the waves was also rhythmic. In the sky above Lingbo Reef there seemed to be music. Ao Ing narrowed his eyes and released his Yuan Shen. At the same time he pricked up his ears to listen carefully. The sound of the waves was like the sound of nature, calming his heart gradually. Seeing a mountain-like reefs appear in front of him, Ao Ing suddenly opened his eyes and roared at the reefs not far away. His entire dragon body immediately soared into the sky and two balls of fire flashed in his opened eyes. Boom boom boom. What responded to Ao Ing was not the sound of the Dragon Clan, nor the figure of the Sea Clan. Instead, it was the roar of the waves and the light that soared into the sky within 1,000 miles of Lingbo Reef. With the light and shadow, tens of thousands of yuan qi of heaven and earth fell from the sky like a flood. When these yuan qi of heaven and earth touched the light and shadow, they immediately turned into huge knots. The knots were of different sizes and in a moment, the entire space was filled with them. Moreover, the roar above the sea gave birth to obscure waves. When the waves hit the reefs, layers of iron blue ice fragments rapidly condensed on the reefs. Then, strands of dragon patterns quickly covered the entire surface of the sea faster than the light and shadow. Not good. Ao Ing noticed the abnormality in the sound of the waves and rushed into the sky without hesitation. However, Ao Shun, Ao Bai, and the other dragons were not so vigilant. It was only after the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth was formed in the space and the dragon patterns covered the surface of the sea that they realized. Ao Shun immediately roared, "The Sea Clan has set an ambush. Quick!" Ao Bai also did not expect that as a member of the West Sea Dragon clan, he would encounter an ambush in his own sea. Shocked, he hurriedly ordered, "Protect the third prince. Go." Dozens of dragons shouted. They moved their bodies and rushed into the sky. These dragons either used their dragon claws to grab the knots of light or used their dragon horns to smash the light and shadow. With the attack of the dragon claws and dragon horns, countless hurricanes blew and countless spatial cracks appeared out of thin air. Rays of cold light and sharp aura rose from the bodies of the dragons. Boom, boom. The knots of light were easily broken by the dragon claws. Waves of light sounds like air explosions were produced as the knots of light exploded. Then, thin five-colored threads flew out of the knots of light and covered the area of several hundred feet around the dragons as if they were invisible. Roar. The five-colored threads fell gently and were even more silent than willow catkins. However, when they landed on the hard bodies of the dragons, all of them let out heart-wrenching roars. When the threads came into contact with the dragon's scales, they immediately emitted a sizzling sound of corrosion and penetrated the scales at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it. Seeing this, how could Ao Shun and the other dragons who were quick-witted dare to touch the knots of heaven and earth? Dragon chi and shadows appeared around them as they tried their best to shrink their bodies. They wanted to pass through the gaps of the knots of light and go to rescue Ao Ing. When the dragons rushed into the sky, there were naturally dragons who escaped into the West Sea. However, as soon as these dragons touched the surface of the sea, the dragon patterns on the surface of the sea immediately emitted an even thicker green luster. Bang bang bang. The sound of heavy objects hitting the surface of the sea was heard again. The surface of the sea was covered with a thick layer of ice. This layer of ice was so strange that even the powerful bodies of the dragons could not penetrate it. Chapter 4693. Woo woo. Most of the dragons in the Western Sea Dragon Palace were of the fire attribute. Naturally, some of them roared angrily and spat out flames from their mouths. Wherever the flames landed, the layers of ice rapidly melted and collapsed. However, when the dragons charged into the sea, before their bodies could pass through the layers of ice, the dragon tattoos pounced on them and covered their entire bodies in an instant. The dragons struggled with all their might. Their powerful strength first cracked the layers of ice, but the dragon tattoos were like thin threads that quickly merged into the dragon's body. In just a moment, the dragon was frozen to death in the layer of ice. Roar roar. The dragons were a little flustered. They could still struggle as they roared angrily, but the thousands of Sea Tribe members were even more helpless. Many Sea Tribe members were instantly frozen when they touched the dragon patterns. Even more Sea Tribe members wanted to rush into the sky, but they were trapped by the thin threads of the light knots. They wailed and rolled in the sky. Ao Ing rushed into the sky and dodged the light knots and dragon patterns on the sea surface. Before he could speak, 4 spindle-like dragon weapons appeared in the sky. The 4 dragon weapons made a buzzing sound as if they were responding to each other. Then, hundreds of tiny red dragons flew out from the 4 spinning dragon weapons. They seemed chaotic, but in fact they were flying in the sky in an orderly manner. Waves of dragons were either hidden in the void or flying high in the sky. In a moment they surrounded Ao Ing. Dragon. Dragon-trapped shuttle? Ao Ying's expression changed. The scattered light around him shone brightly as if it wanted to rush out. However, just as the scattered light rushed into the dragon form immediately pounced down from the sky. Layers of sharp sawtooth shapes appeared out of thin air. Wherever the sawtooth passed, a black and white aura was produced, and the void gradually collapsed. Ao Ying's dragon body flashed. The sawtooth streaked across the left side of his dragon body. A wisp of blood burst out from his dragon body, and several dragon scales were cut by the sawtooth. Damn it! Ao Ing gritted his teeth and looked angrily at the reef not far away. He shouted, "Which daring traitor dares to ambush this king in the West Sea?" Unfortunately, Ao Ying's anger did not summon the ambusher. Only screams sounded from the reef in the distance. Ao Ying's subordinates were killed one by one. Jianghu. Ao Ing pointed with his dragon claw and roared, "Don't think that just because you are hiding there, this king doesn't know that you are the one who ambushed this king. Your ambition is too great. My West Sea Dragon Palace has already issued a warning when you led the dragon clan into my West Sea territory. Now that you dare to ambush me here, it looks like You already intend to break off all relations with my dragon clan. Roar. With that, Aoing let out a loud roar. A scarlet dragon crown appeared on top of her dragon head. Under the brilliance of the dragon crown, Ao Ying's dragon body was protected. Clusters of flames also seeped out from the gaps between the dragon scales. These flames were red and black in color. The black flames were like Ao Ying's anger, burning the entire space. Ao Ying roared angrily and pounced towards the towering reef. The dragon horn emitted a scarlet-red beam of light that pierced straight into the reef. Boom! The reef collapsed in response. Above the reef, bursts of spatial ripples appeared, and a huge dragon-shaped figure flickered in the void like a flickering candlelight. Although the dragon figure was very blurry and constantly flickered in the setting sun, in Ao Ying's eyes, it was as if lightning had struck her. While Ao Ying's dragon body trembled, she cried out in disbelief, "You? It's actually you. Sai, third brother, why do you have to do this?" Seeing that his tracks were exposed, the dragon slowly revealed himself and sighed, "Since you already think that I am Jianghu from the heavenly abode river, you also know that you are powerless to escape this predicament. Sooner or later, you will die under this dragon coiling shuttle. There is no need to force me to show myself like this." Ah ha ha ha. Aoing didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Her roar tore the nearby dragon image apart. "If I didn't force you into a corner, how could I force you to show yourself? If I didn't see you with my own eyes, how would I know that my beloved second brother is actually lying in ambush here and wants to kill me with his own hands? Second brother, this is something that I never even dreamed of." This dragon was naturally the second prince of the West Sea Dragon Palace, Aou. At this moment, when Aou heard Ao Ying's words, a trace of guilt appeared in his eyes. He laughed dryly and said, "Third brother, it's not that I don't want to let you go. It's that you don't want to let me go. Do you still remember what I said to you before the dragon envoy came to my West Sea Dragon Palace?" "Of course I remember." Ao Ying's heart had already begun to turn cold. He looked at Aou and replied word by word, "Did I answer wrong? There is only one master of the West Sea Dragon Palace. You have the right to be the master and so do I. Why must I give it to you for no reason? To tell you the truth, other than you, Ao Chen also asked me the same question. I also gave the same answer. You and I are all crown princes. Since father didn't appoint anyone to be the master of the West Sea before he went missing, then we all have the qualifications to see who can ascend to the dragon throne of the West Sea with our own abilities." At this point, Aoing suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. He pointed his dragon claw at Aou in shock and said, "You. I understand now. You are actually in cahoots with Ao Chen, third brother." Aou did not answer Ao Ying's question. Instead, he shook his head and said, "You are very outstanding, so outstanding that I am jealous. However, you are too arrogant. You don't know that other than you, us crown princes have also sacrificed a lot for the Dragon Emperor. You always think that you are the only one who is favored by father. However, you don't know that father doesn't trust you the most. Is there any use in saying all this now?" Aoing asked coldly. "Even if I heard the truth, would you let me go?" "Yes, there is no use in saying all this. When you rejected my good intentions, your fate was already decided." Aou replied calmly. "If I don't take advantage of this strange insect disaster to kill you, I'm afraid there won't be a good opportunity in the future. Is it here?" Aoing looked around at the reef surrounded by the dragon formation and mocked, "Is it here where you and I almost died back then?" "That's right, it is here. If it wasn't for this place that made you sigh, how could you have fallen into the trap so easily?" Aou did not hide his scheme. At this time, near the light junction beside the dragon pattern, some dragons appeared and began to attack Ao Ying's subordinates. Aoing looked at Aou with sorrow in his eyes. He said softly, "Second brother, when I heard about Ao Chen of the South Sea Dragon Palace, I was shocked. Do you still remember what I said when father was forced to open the Dragon Palace by that bastard Xiaohua?" Chapter 4694. "Of course I remember." Aou replied calmly. "You swore a dragon oath in front of father that you would never lay a hand on your brother. You would rather give up the position of Dragon Palace of the West Sea for your brotherhood." "That's right. I still remember what happened that day. However, I never expected that the first person to raise the butcher's knife against me would not be the dragon clan of the heavenly abode, but my dearest second brother. It's not that you didn't think about it, it's that you didn't dare to think about it." Aou sneered. At that time, father was already in a terrible mood. We didn't dare to make father unhappy. However, no one was as bold as you to jump out and swear a dragon oath. Do you know how many princes you have offended with that dragon oath of yours? Old Seventh even mocked you in front of me and eldest brother. If he were to lay a hand on you, would you still remember your dragon oath? So, Ao Ying's face was as cold as ice. Are you testing me on behalf of Old Seventh? Just as Ao Ying said that, he suddenly swung his dragon body. His dragon horn glowed as it pierced towards Ao Yu's dragon body at lightning speed. Boom. There was a loud explosion as the light from the dragon horn swept through thousands of feet of space. The knots of light were like candlelight being extinguished by a strong wind. Even the dragon-slaying threads were like broken spiderwebs floating in the air. Where the dragon horn landed, Ao Yu's dragon body shattered into pieces. Pieces of greenish-brown boulders flew into the sky. Aha, Old Third, this is the dragon array. Do you think I will face you head-on? Ao Yu's voice sounded from another direction. His dragon body naturally appeared in the sky. Roar. Roar. Ao Ying seemed to have used some secret technique of the dragon clan. After his dragon horn dimmed, the dragon chi around him was quickly withdrawn. At the same time, the threads that had been swept away earlier strangely appeared in the wind again. They were like entangling threads of love that silently fell. Ao Ying was the same as the other dragons. Although huge dragon runes appeared on the dragon scales where the thin thread landed, trying to block it, sizzling sounds could be heard as the thin thread sank into the scales. Ao Ying could not help but cry out in pain as the huge dragon tail swung wildly in the wave reef. Damn it. Ao Ying opened his dragon's mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon's breath. Terrifying yuan qi descended from the sky and struck the light knots and thin threads that had quietly appeared. Unfortunately, neither the dragon's breath nor the yuan qi could destroy them. Instead, the thin threads became even clearer. Bones splintering silk. Ao Ying's eyes were filled with hatred as he roared loudly, seemingly unwilling to accept this. Ao Yu, you actually used the bone-splintering silk to kill your own brother? I'm really disappointed in you. Hee, disappointed? You've been disappointed in so many things. Ao Yu sneered. If you were in my shoes, would you be able to guarantee your dragon oath? Can you guarantee that you won't attack the other brothers? Alright. Ao Ying shouted. Since you've already made the first move, then this king's dragon oath has naturally lost its effect. Don't blame this king for not showing mercy. At this point in time, how can there be any mercy left? Ao Ying, you're thinking too much. Ao Yu was not in a hurry as he spoke slowly. However, the dragon crown on Ao Ying's dragon head suddenly cracked inch by inch and a ruby-like jade seal was revealed. Once the jade seal was revealed, it immediately emitted sparks. The sparks landed in the air and created extremely hot ripples. Red Marquee Seal. Ao Yu saw the jade seal and could not help but be shocked. He shouted, "The red marquee seal that was stolen from my West Sea Dragon Palace for 10,000 years is actually in your hands? You can go to hell." Ao Ying did not answer Ao Yu. His dragon horn emitted a brilliant light again as he activated the red marquee seal. A scorching flame soared into the sky and instantly enveloped the surrounding 50 kilometers. Within the flame, not only did the light knot and thin threads disappear, even the frozen surface of the sea melted instantly. What was even more terrifying was that the rocks of the Lingbo Reef turned into molten iron in the flame. Damn it. Ao Yu was panic-stricken. His body appeared in another direction. The void and the dragon scales had already lit up with thin strands of fire. Ha. Ao Yu, do you know what it means to go for wool and come home shorn? Ao Ying laughed maniacally as his dragon body regained its vitality. Just as he was about to pounce at Ao Yu, something strange happened. Within the slightly pitch-black flames, a sharp point that was hundreds of feet long suddenly flashed. There was also a layer of flames around the sharp point. The flames blocked Ao Ying's yuan psyche. When blood splattered, the sharp point easily stabbed into Ao Ying's dragon body. The dragon aura around Ao Ying rapidly dissipated. Furthermore, the red marquee seal above Ao Ying's head emitted a decadent aura. In the surrounding space, the invincible flames immediately disappeared. Ao Ying's dragon claw clawed back, wanting to grab the triple chestnut-shaped sharp point. However, where his dragon claw landed, the sharp point emitted a cold light and blocked his dragon claw. Ao Ying roared helplessly as his dragon body tumbled in the sky. An indescribable misery appeared in his eyes as his roar of disbelief resounded throughout the Lingbo Reef. I know. This is St. Zhang's dragon breaking all. Ao Yu. You actually dared to lure the Saint River Dragon clan from the Western Paradise into my West Sea. At this moment there was a loud boom. Not far away, under the layer of ice that had already melted, a 5-colored flood dragon soared into the sky. That flood dragon landed in midair and smiled faintly. Although I am the young master of St. Jianghu, I am also the prince consort of the West Sea Dragon Palace. If something happens to our West Sea Dragon Palace, as the prince consort, how can I just stand by and watch? Jing ching jing ching. Aoing screamed crazily. I will not let you off even if I become a ghost, much less Ao Xian. Don't worry, you won't become a ghost. Ao Xian won't come to the West Sea either. The young master of the Saint River Dragon clan, Jing Qing, smiled faintly. He looked quite charming. When he looked at Aou again, his previous panic immediately disappeared. He sneered. Aoing, don't think that no dragon clan can do anything to you just because you have the red marquee seal. I already knew that the red marquee seal was in your hands. However, at this point, something strange happened again. Chapter 4695. Unfortunately, before Aou could finish his sentence, Aou's voice suddenly became high-pitched. A scream came from his mouth. Looking at his dragon body that had not completely extinguished the flames, a dragon piercing all that was exactly the same as the one on Ao Ying's body appeared. At this time, the dragon piercing all rushed out from the bottom of the sea and pierced deeply into Aou's heart. Oh, how is this possible? Aou's face was filled with disbelief. He looked at Ao Ying's pain and then looked at the dragon piercing all on his dragon body. He roared, How? How can there be 2 dragon piercing alls? Jing ching you. Boom. At this time there was another roar. A dragon with green fog around her body rushed out from the bottom of the sea. The dragon's body looked a little petite. It was obviously a female dragon. Ao Xian? Aou looked at the female dragon and cried out, You didn't go. However, at this moment, Aou seemed to have understood something no matter how foolish he was. Sure enough, Aoing, who was in extreme pain earlier, suddenly stopped his rolling dragon body in the sky. With a cold smile on his face, he said, Yes, big sister was going to attack old 7, but she was worried about little brother and specially came to take a look. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Aou shouted. He used his dragon claws to point at Aoing, Jing Qing and Ao Xian in disbelief. He said, I thought I was smart and my plan was unparalleled in the West Sea. But after so many calculations, I only realized now that I am the stupid one. I am the prey of others. You are really stupid. Aoing laughed heartily. For an ambush like the Lingbo Reef, if it wasn't for this king's intention, who would really come to this dangerous reef for no reason to patrol? If I didn't care about my dragon oath, why would I let you make the first move? Now that this king's dragon vow hasn't been broken and your life is gone, this king is the biggest winner. Aou felt his dragon body getting colder and colder. He knew that he was about to die, but he was really unwilling. He stared at Ao Xian and said word by word, Big sister, are you really so heartless? Aou, don't blame big sister. Ao Xian said in a low voice. The West Sea is no longer a paradise. All the powers that have the strength to compete have come. I am the princess of the West Sea Dragon Palace. I also have the qualifications. Furthermore, didn't you make a move on third brother first? Aoing, oh Aoing. Aou did not wait for Ao Xian to finish speaking as he laughed out loud. He looked at the dragon breaking all that had already entered his dragon body and said, Don't say that I'm an idiot. Aren't you? An idiot too? Jing Qing immediately moved away from Aoing and laughed. Aou, you're about to die. Don't try to sow discord between us. Don't worry, big brother-in-law. Aoing laughed and pulled out the dragon breaking all from his body. He said, How can I not believe big brother-in-law? However, just as his dragon claw landed on the dragon breaking all, boom. The dragon breaking all emitted a blinding light. The entire dragon breaking all suddenly expanded and a sharp light appeared from the dragon breaking all. It pierced into Ao Ying's dragon body like a hot knife through butter. The dragon breaking all was so powerful that it actually pushed Ao Ying's huge dragon body down 1,000 feet and nailed him onto a huge rock. Roar. Ao Ying's dragon body was extremely convulsing as he shook with all his might. His roar was also filled with confusion. How did this become the real dragon breaking all? Third brother? Ao Xian's faint voice sounded from afar. You wanted to find a replica of the dragon breaking all to fool Aou. However, there is no such replica in this world. Thus, big sister had no choice but to give you a real dragon breaking all. Because St. Jianghu's dragon breaking all is a pair of male and female. Ha 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 ha. Aou laughed until tears flowed down his face. Although he was exhaling more than he was inhaling, he still forced himself to shout. Aoing, do you still remember what your dragon oath was? If you attack your own brother, you will be nailed to death on the West Sea's rock. Aha, the heavens are fair. Aoing, you asked me just now. Is it time for me to ask you now? Do you know what it means to lift a rock and smash it on your own feet? Do you know what it means to invite a wolf into the house? Do you know what it means to? Unfortunately, as he spoke, Aou had already collapsed and no longer made a sound. Aou was dead and Aoing also stopped struggling. This was because the dragon breaking all had nailed him onto the rock. His life was flowing away like the seawater being washed away by the Lingbo reef. He lifted his dragon head helplessly and said weakly, "Big sister, you died." However, other than these few words he could not say anything else. This ambush on the Lingbo reef was his plan. He had bet everything on it. However, he did not expect that he would still lose. Third brother, you must remember in your next life, don't trust any dragon. Ao Xian said calmly, furthermore, any oath, when the price is high enough, it will become poison. You have made a lot of promises to Big Sister, but are these promises comparable to the Dragon Emperor of the West Sea Dragon Palace? Alright, I have nothing to say. Ao Ing lifted his head with difficulty. At this moment, within the dragon array, the dragons and sea tribes of the Saint River had already stepped out. These dragons and sea tribes raised their butcher's knives and madly attacked the West Sea tribes. I think, Ao Ing continued, it won't be long before the news of me and second brother killing each other reaches the West Sea Dragon Palace. Big sister and brother-in-law will be able to rightfully return to the West Sea. How could you possibly kill each other? Jing Qing smiled and said, the 9 princes of the West Sea are very close to each other. When you patrol the West Sea, you will naturally fall into the ambush of the dragons of the Dongtian River. Ah, this framing. You are really good at it. Aoing could not help but laugh. That Jianghu of the Dongtian River wanted to get her hands on the West Sea. Now, even if she wants to clear her name. Before Ao you could finish his sentence. Roar. Another dragon's roar came from the sky far away. Then a powerful yuan shen swept across the clouds. At the same time a cold voice sounded, he who said that I can't clear my name? Jianghu. Ao Xian, who had been calm all this time, suddenly had a huge change in expression. She exclaimed in a daze. We meet again, Princess Ao. Jianghu looked at Ao Xian's panic with interest and smiled slightly. Chapter 4696. The 5-colored flood dragon Jing Qing was very confused. He shouted in surprise, why are you here? Before I set up the array I had already searched the entire sea region. Could it be that you have been following us all along? You think you can find me with your 7th grade elemental power? Jianghu snorted in disdain. Besides, I was just flying past the Lingbo reef and happened to see your dirty business. Otherwise, who would care about you little loaches? Don't you think so, Princess Ao? Damn it. Ao Xian cursed in her heart, but she did not dare to show her anger on her face. She smiled and said, Jianghu, we came all the way to the West Sea. We know very well why. Since you have seen it, I will not hide it from you. What do you want from the Dongtian River? Tell us. We, the Saint Jiang, are willing to make a deal with you. The deal is easy. Jianghu smiled and waved her dragon claws. However, before the deal, I would like to ask Princess Ao. Between you and me, who is the little loach? Who is only fit to swim in the stinky river? Ao Xian clenched her teeth and did not say anything. She knew very well that she had insulted Jianghu with those words in the past. Now Jianghu had returned it to her. How could she answer? Senior Jiang. Ao Xian whispered pitifully. You are already an 8th grade elemental power dragon. Why do you have to lower yourself to my level? Back then I was just blinded by lard. That's why. Say it. Between you and me, who is the little loach that swims in the stinky river? Jianghu was not moved at all. Ao Xian glanced at Jing Qing and then at Ao Ing, who was on the verge of death but still forced herself to watch the show. She gritted her teeth and answered, of course it is me. Ao Xian, you can't even finish your sentence? Why can't I understand what you are saying? Jianghu asked Ao Xian as she recalled the scene of her being humiliated that day. Yes, senior. Junior Ao Xian is that little loach that is only fit to swim in the smelly sewers. Ao Xian clearly remembered Jianghu's reply that day. She also replied word by word. At least you can see your true colors clearly. Not bad, not bad. You will have a bright future. Jianghu smiled and said, however, before we discuss your future, I want to ask again. What happened on the Liao River of the hidden immortal continent? Oh, Leaked the whereabouts of the Heavenly River lineage to the North Sea Dragon Palace? This. When Ao Xian heard this, her expression changed drastically. She did not hesitate to point at Ao Ying and said, Senior Jiang, that was Ao Ying's doing. Junior has already married into Sage Jiang. How could I have information about Liao Jiang of hidden immortal continent? Ao Ying was furious. Just as he was about to retort, a large amount of dragon blood seeped out of the dragon, breaking all. Ao Ying howled a few times and died. Haha, this is called dead men tell no tales. Jiang Hong laughed loudly and said. Ao Xian's expression calmed down and she smiled. Senior is wise, this matter is. This was done by you, Sage Jiangji. Unfortunately, before Ao Xian could finish, another thunderous dragon roar was heard. Ao Zhan descended from the sky from another direction. Oh, Ao Zhan? Jing Qing looked as if he had seen a ghost. His dragon body shook. You. Why are you here too? Why can't I be here? Ao Zhan smiled. If I didn't come, how could I see what Sage Jiangji and his dragon husband did? How could I see Princess Ao killing her two younger brothers in order to seize the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace? If I didn't come, how could I expose Princess Ao's secret to the North Sea Dragon Palace? What evidence do you have? Ao Xian gritted her teeth and said again. Ao Zhan raised his right claw and waved it. I don't need any evidence. I just need to prove that I was the dragon guard of the East Sea. Damn it. Ao Xian cursed in a low voice. She didn't know how to refute because she knew clearly that the dragon guards of the East Sea Dragon Palace were responsible for the information of the East Sea Dragon Palace and the safety of the princes. He could easily find out what she did back then. Boom. Jiang Hong stretched out his dragon claw, and in a loud roar, a golden dragon claw shadow that was hundreds of feet long broke through the air. It leaped across the few miles of space and grabbed Ao Xian's dragon body. Ao Xian naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. She hurriedly swung her dragon tail and pointed at the dragon, breaking all on Ao Yu's body at the same time, and pounced on Jiang Hong. PFFF. Jiang Hong's dragon claws tore apart the dragon formation and landed on Ao Xian's violent dragon tail. Two muffled sounds rang out. Ow ow. What followed was Ao Xian's blood-curdling screams. Jiang Hong's dragon claws dug deeply into Ao Xian's dragon tail, tearing apart the dragon scales. That dragon tail, which was indestructible to ordinary humans, was even torn apart by Jiang Hong's claws. Dragon breaking all? It's just a piece of scrap metal in your hands. Seeing the dragon breaking through the air, Jiang Hong sneered. He opened his mouth and spat out a dragon breath, which blocked the dragon breaking all a few miles away. No matter how hard the dragon breaking all struggled, it couldn't move forward even half an inch. I'll fight you to the death. Jing Qing roared and pounced on Ao Zhan crazily. Ao Zhan didn't dare to be as casual as Jiang Hong. He roared and urged his dragon body to meet Jing Qing's attack head-on. For a moment, the originally cold and cheerless Lingbo Reef once again flared up. Waves of water soared into the sky like pillars, and the airwaves tore apart the clouds in the sky. The battle between the two enormous dragons even smashed many reefs into pieces. Although Ao Zhan had gained a lot of benefits, he had only cultivated for a short period of time. He was already at a disadvantage in the time it took to eat a meal. Not only was his dragon body torn apart, even his dragon head was damaged a little. However, Jiang Hong, who had already injured Ao Xian, wasn't in a hurry to help. She just watched indifferently. Senior Jiang. Ao Xian understood that although there were many dragons and sea tribes on the Lingbo Reef, only Jiang Hong could control the situation. She hurriedly whispered, "You are the leader of the Heavenly Paradise River. If you spare this junior, Senior Jiang, will follow your lead. Moreover, this junior will definitely hand over the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace. Of course, if you are willing, this junior can help you kill Ao Zhan. Take his forces." Jiang Hong snorted and said, "Why do I need you to interfere with what I want to do?" Senior, this junior knows your difficulties." Ao Xian chuckled and said, "You are a disciple of the Fortune Gate, and this Ao Zhan is familiar with Dao Master Shao. If I'm not mistaken, Dao Master Shao has already promised the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace to Ao Zhan. Although Ao Zhan has the bloodline of the Hui tribe's patriarch, his strength is still weak. How can he compare to your great talent and strategy? If it's inconvenient for you to make a move, this junior can do it for you. Moreover, today is a good opportunity." Jiang Hong's expression changed slightly when she heard what Ao Xian said. She actually raised her dragon claw. When Ao Xin saw this, she immediately knew that she had hit Jianghong's sore spot. She wanted to add more oil to the fire. Unfortunately, before she could say another word, Jianghong let out a sinister laugh. With a boom, her dragon claws smashed onto Ao Xian's dragon head, knocking Ao Xian onto the reef. She then said, "Ao Xian, if I want to do something, I will naturally do it. I don't need you to teach me." Roar. Jianghong swung her dragon tail. Boom. Jing Qing, who was about to attack Ao Zhan again, was sent flying. His dragon body was badly mutilated. Kill. Jianghong roared and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The dragon breath rushed into the sky and turned into the image of a dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Kill. From the void thousands of miles away, a dozen dragons from the heavenly abode river tore through the air and pounced on Lingbo Reef. The leading dragon roared and shouted, "Reporting to Princess, the heavenly abode river has just received orders and is rushing here." Jianghong nodded coldly and said, "There's no need to wait for them. You can all." Cough cough. Before Jianghong could finish speaking, a familiar coughing sound rang in her ears. Master? When Jianghong heard the cough, her face was filled with joy. However, a moment later, her eyes flashed with panic. When she raised her head to look at the source of the sound, she saw a streak of light flying through the night sky like a shooting star. The holy heavenly horse spread its wings, carrying the beautiful Princess Zixia and the charming Xiaohua as it descended. The grand ascension stage aura rushed down from the sky like a tsunami. Not to mention the sea tribes, even the hundreds of dragons trembled and fell to the ground uncontrollably. No one dared to move. Disciple greets master. Jianghong's face was filled with respect. She transformed into her human form and knelt in mid-air. "We greet sect master." Although the Grotto Heaven River Dragon tribe hadn't returned to the soaring Dragon Mountain range, they had already received news from the Fortune Gate. They transformed into their human forms and knelt in mid-air to greet Ao Zhan. Ao Zhan was injured, but he grimaced in pain and bowed. Junior greets Master Long. The West Sea Dragon tribe, the Sage River Dragon tribe, and the Sea tribes were all trembling in fear, not daring to raise their voices. Ao Xian and Jing Qing's faces were pale as they looked at each other. The two dragons looked at each other and knelt down in the air, shouting, "Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao." The Pegasus flying carriage stopped in the sky. Xiaohua withdrew his aura and brought Princess Zixia down. His gaze swept across the crowd of dragons and finally landed on Jianghong and Ao Zhan. He waved his sleeves and said, "Get up." "Yes, master." Jianghong got up and looked at Princess Zixia. She bowed respectfully again and said, "Ninth Princess." Chapter 4697. No need to be so courteous. Princess Zixia saw that Jianghong's greeting was neither too far nor too close, and she could see Jianghong's cautiousness and meticulousness. Ao Zhan also flew over, smiling as he greeted, "This one greets Princess Zixia." "You're too polite." Princess Zixia smiled and nodded. "Why did Master suddenly come to the West Sea?" Before Xiaohua could speak, Jianghong hurriedly asked. This disciple received Lu Yi's order and hurriedly led the Holy Paradise River's subordinates to the West Sea. Moreover, this disciple heard that our Fortune Gate's first batch of disciples were only close to the West Sea's border, and you weren't there. "Oh, this disciple understands. Is Master looking for a place for our Fortune Gate to settle down?" To be honest with Master, this disciple already has a plan in mind, and this disciple is heading there to investigate. If Master is free, this disciple can go with this disciple to take a look. Seeing Jianghong speaking one sentence after another, it is obvious that she is somewhat guilty. Xiaohua wants to berate her a few words, but thinking of what he saw just now and the sound transmission between Jianghong and Ao Xian, Jianghong indeed did not do anything wrong. The reason why Jianghong felt guilty was because she understood that Xiaohua didn't intend to make him the master of the West Sea. Moreover, Jianghong also faintly knew that Xiaohua wanted the little white dragon to be the master of the West Sea. Since Xiaohua had made such a decision, Jianghong rashly coming to the West Sea was clearly looking down on Xiaohua's authority and not listening to his orders. Looking at Jianghong and the Holy Paradise River's dragon tribe, Xiaohua had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Everything proved that Jianghong was an excellent dragon tribe leader. She had the means and the ability to unify the West Sea, and was qualified to sit on the West Sea Dragon Palace's dragon throne. Unfortunately, Jianghong was a female dragon. She did not have the West Sea Fire Dragon's soul, nor did she have the West Sea Dragon throne. She could only rely on the Fortune Gate and Xiaohua. Looking at Xiaobai, Xiao Hua didn't know if Xiao Bai had the ability to lead the West Sea's dragon tribe. However, Xiao Bai had the fire dragon's soul, and now he had the West Sea dragon throne. Most importantly, Xiao Bai had the seven-colored sea god seashell and Xiao Hua's approval. With this comparison, Xiao Hua felt a little regretful. Of course, he had to give the West Sea dragon throne to the little white dragon. Because the little white dragon might not be a good leader, just like how he might not be a good Fortune Gate chief. Alas, this is the fate of the heavenly Tao. Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He looked at the restless Jianghu and said, Master came to the West Sea for another matter. The matter of our Fortune Gate's foundation will be decided by you and Lu Yi. He is now in charge of the Fortune Gate's affairs. If you have any ideas, you can discuss them with him. Also, if there's anything your clan needs, feel free to inform Lu Yi. Seeing Xiao Hua's amiable tone, no different from before, Jianghu heaved a long sigh of relief. However, before she could speak, a fierce expression flashed in Xiao Hua's eyes, and he swept the members of the dragon clan with his gaze before he said coldly, I've seen everything that all of you have done. I'm also aware of how Ao Ying and Ao Yu died. Jianghu, you've done well. You didn't fall for Ao Xian's bewitchment. This old man is relieved. Master. Jianghu was so frightened that she broke out in cold sweat. She hurriedly knelt down and said, Disciple has always engraved Master's teachings in her heart. Although Disciple has some selfish thoughts, Disciple knows what to do when it comes to matters of principle. And get up. Xiao Hua nodded. How do you plan to deal with the Sage River Dragon clan? Kill. Jianghu said without hiding anything, the Sage River Dragon clan belongs to the Western Paradise world. They actually dared to touch the West Sea. Jianghu. Jing Qing hurriedly shouted, Your Paradise River belongs to the hidden immortal mainland. How dare you touch the West Sea? Ao Xian's expression changed when she heard that. She quickly looked at Xiao Hua. As expected, Xiao Hua smiled leisurely and said, Because our Fortune Gate wants to expand in the West Sea in the future, the Paradise River Dragon clan came to the West Sea. Jianghu, these two members of the Dragon clan. And the Sage River Dragon clan, there's no need to kill them. Take them to the West Sea Dragon Palace. I'm going to meet the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island. The situation in the West Sea is so chaotic. The two princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace were killed by the first princess. If our Fortune Gate doesn't stay in the West Sea Dragon Palace, wouldn't the West Sea Dragon Palace fall into chaos? Jianghu was overjoyed when she heard that. She understood that the West Sea Dragon Palace was controlled by the Dragon Island and the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. No one could interfere. The Fortune Gate happened to see the internal strife in the West Sea Dragon Palace. This was the perfect opportunity and reason to insert the Fortune Gate's forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In that case, it was better for Ao Xian and Jing Qing to be alive. He could even use these two members of the Dragon clan to extend his hand into the Sage River Dragon clan. Yes, Master. Jianghu replied. On the distant sea, there were already waves rising to the sky. It should be the Paradise River Dragon clan coming over. Ao Xian and Jing Qing heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that. Although they didn't know whether they would live or die in the West Sea Dragon Palace, at least they didn't have to die for now. 1-1. At this time, within 1,000 li, there was another rumbling sound. Countless mayfly insects flew out from the void as if they had smelled something fishy. These mayfly insects were of different sizes, and the biggest one was more than 100 zhang tall. Do you see that? Xiao Hua sneered, and his voice rumbled like thunder. This is the biggest enemy our 3 continents and 3 rivers and 4 seas are facing. These strange insects are called mayflies, and they have the power to destroy the world. All of us venerables gathered at the Nacre Lake to discuss how to exterminate these strange insects. However, even our gathering was disrupted by these mayfly insects. You people don't know self-respect, you don't know righteousness, and you're still looking for small benefits. What's the meaning of this? Master. Jianghu hurriedly called out. Disciple has long heard about the power of these mayfly insects. Seeing them today, they are indeed powerful. Should we avoid them or exterminate them? Exterminate them. Xiao Hua said without hesitation. These mayfly insects not only devour dragons with cultivation, but also ordinary members of the sea. If you don't exterminate them, they will raise the West Sea to the ground. Everyone, exterminate these mayfly insects. Jianghu didn't say anything else after hearing that. She waved her dragon claws, and while commanding the dragons of the heavenly abode, she rushed into the swarm of mayfly insects. Saints of the Jiang clan, West Sea Dragon Palace, attack as well. Xiao Hua ordered indifferently. Yes, Junior understands. Ao Xian and Jing Qing knew that this was a good opportunity to redeem themselves. After receiving the order, they immediately commanded the saints of the Jiang clan to rush into the swarm of mayfly insects. Even with Xiao Hua and the other Taoist experts, the battle between the heavenly abode and the saints of the heavenly abode and the mayfly insects lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Seeing the last mayfly insect explode under Xiao Hua's punch, Jiang Hong and the other dragons of the heavenly abode could finally relax. Looking at the injuries all over her body, Jiang Hong smiled bitterly. She was no longer a member of the dragon clan who had a clear understanding of her own body. In this world, there were very few members of the demon clan who had a tougher body than the dragon clan. However, this kind of dragon clan body was as fragile as a piece of paper in front of the strange insect's hind legs. Every single scar on her body caused Jiang Hong to feel a lingering fear. Ever since she achieved great success in her cultivation, Jiang Hong had never suffered such heavy injuries. And today, if Xiao Hua wasn't here, that several hundred feet long strange insect could really exterminate all the dragon clan members. The mayfly insects lived up to its name. Xiao Hua released the netherworld origin power and collected the souls of the dead dragons and sea clans. Then, he said indifferently, "This old man hopes that today's battle will let you see the situation of the entire war clearly. This is the moment of life and death for our 3 continents. The importance of working together is far more important than the scheming between each other. Do you think the dragon throne of the West Sea Dragon Palace is easy to sit on? If you can't destroy the mayfly insects and bring peace to the West Sea, even if you sit on the dragon throne, you will still be overthrown by the other dragons." "Yes, this junior understands." Ao Xian and the others replied in unison. "Let's go to the West Sea Dragon Palace," Xiao Hua said with a wave of his hand. Naturally, going to the West Sea Dragon Palace wasn't just a day. Before Xiao Hua and the others could get close, the Yuxia of the West Sea Dragon Palace had already seen the mighty heavenly abode river clan. The Yuxia turned pale with fright and hurriedly dived into the sea to report. Xiao Hua had already seen it. He smiled and ordered the disciples of the Jiang Hong sect to report. Boom boom boom. After a few moments, pillars of light shot into the sky and tore apart the dark clouds. Amidst the sounds of string instruments, several dragons flew out on the waves. The leading dragon's body was yellow. After seeing Xiao Hua, he hurriedly transformed into human form. An old dragon with a bitter face and gray hair appeared. The old dragon bowed and said, "Junior Ao Su of the Gui clan greets Dragon Master Xiao." "Ao Su?" Xiao Hua frowned. He looked up and down at this dragon with the strength of the lower 9th grade and asked curiously, "You're named after the earthly branch? I'm afraid you're also an elder of the Dragon Palace?" "Good Dragon Master knows." Ao Su said with a smile, "This junior is not an elder of the Dragon Palace, but a second elder of the Dragon Palace." After saying that, seeing Xiao Hua's confusion, he explained, "The 10 elders of the Dragon Palace are the heads of the 10 clans of the Dragon Island. They are named after the 10 heavenly stems. The 12 second elders of the Dragon Palace are named after the 12 earthly branches. They are responsible for the affairs of the Dragon Palace and report to the 10 elders of the Dragon Palace. Under the second elder, there are 60 deacons who are responsible for the miscellaneous matters of the Dragon Palace. They are named after the combination of the heavenly stems and earthly branches. The disappearance of the West Sea Dragon King and Dragon Throne is very important. The 9th elder of the Dragon Palace can't leave the Dragon Island for a long time, so he sent me to the West Sea Dragon Palace to represent the Dragon Island to assist the 3 Sea Dragon Kings and deal with the aftermath. So that's how it is." Xiao Hua understood and said with a smile, "Although this Xiao is the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, I still don't know much about the Dragon Island. Please forgive me. Dragon Master will go to the Dragon Island more in the future. You'll naturally understand." Ao Su said with a smile. Junior Ao Xiang of the East Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Beside Ao Su, a tall and valiant dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Chapter 4698. I just saw your father's martial prowess at the Jade Pool meeting, and now I see your martial prowess again. I'm really surprised. Why does the heavens favor your East Sea Dragon Palace? Each generation is stronger than the previous. Xiao Hua smiled and helped Ao Xiang up, praising him. Ao Xiang was very humble. He smiled and said, "Senior, you flatter me. How can I compare to my father's political and martial prowess?" After Ao Xiang saw Xiao Hua, a fat dragon hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Junior Ao Qian from the West Sea greets Dragon Master Xiao. Looking at this dragon with a pair of fish eyes, Xiao Hua sighed inwardly. He nodded and said, "This old man hasn't seen you before, but just now in front of Lingbo Reef, I heard your name." "Who did Dragon Master hear about me in front of the Lingbo Reef?" Ao Qian's face was full of joy, as if it was an honor for Xiao Hua to hear his name. He hurriedly asked. "There are a lot of dragons talking about you." Xiao Hua said meaningfully, "Ao Yu, Ao Ing, Ao Xian and Jing Qing." When Xiao Hua mentioned Ao Yu and Ao Ing, Ao Su and Ao Xiang did not think much of it. But when Xiao Hua called out the name of the Saint River Dragon race, the two dragons turned pale with fright. They looked at each other as if they had thought of something. Looking at Ao Qian again, his face was actually blurred. He asked curiously, "What? Big sister actually returned to the West Sea? Why didn't she come to the West Sea Dragon Palace? Why did she go to the Lingbo Reef?" Xiao Hua didn't know whether Ao Qian was really stupid or pretending to be stupid, but he had a deep impression of the dragon's cunning. He only nodded at Ao Su and said, "Let's talk about it after we enter the Dragon Palace." "Yes, Dragon Master, please." Ao Su didn't dare to neglect. He hurriedly bowed and asked Xiao Hua to go first. At this time, Princess Zixia, accompanied by Jianghu, walked out from the group of dragons behind. When Ao Su saw, he thought for a while and also raised his hand with Ao Xiang and Ao Qian. Princess Zixia understood that her status with Xiao Hua was not fixed. If she was the 9th princess of the Immortal Palace, the second elder of the Dragon Island might not be so polite. Ao Su raised his hand was also because of Xiao Hua's face, so she didn't dare to be disrespectful. She smiled gracefully and raised her hand to return the greeting. Ao Su completed his etiquette and ignored Princess Zixia. He hurriedly accompanied Xiao Hua into the West Sea Dragon Palace. In his early years, Xiao Hua had already walked through the West Sea Dragon Palace. However, at that time, his eyes were filled with half of the treasures in the West Sea Dragon Palace's treasury. He didn't look at the Dragon Palace at all, nor did he stay in the main hall for long. Today, as soon as he stepped into the main hall, he saw that the hall was overflowing with treasure light. It was oppressively magnificent, even more dazzling than the South Sea Dragon Palace. "Master Long, please take a seat." Ao Su respectfully gestured. Xiao Hua wanted to decline, but after thinking for a moment, he raised his hand and pushed the door above his head. Boom! A soaring dragon aura mixed with red light forced its way to the top of the hall. The Dragon Master's crimson dragon crown appeared above Xiao Hua's head. Seeing Xiao Hua take out the scarlet dragon crown, Ao Su was delighted. After all, the main seat in the main hall of the West Ocean Dragon Palace was the symbol of the dragon race's commander. It was inevitable that it would be inappropriate for a Dao sect disciple to sit on it. However, aside from the main seat, where else could Xiao Hua sit in the main hall? Now that Xiao Hua was wearing the scarlet dragon crown, even the true ruler of the West Sea would have to bow and salute him. Xiao Hua's arrival not only preserved the dignity of the human race's grand ascension stage, but also preserved the might of the dragon race. No one would have any doubts about Xiao Hua's arrival. Xiao Hua sat down. Ao Su, Ao Xiang, and Ao Qian also accompanied him at the side. The dragon generals and officials of the West Sea Dragon Palace also followed the prescribed order and stood in attendance. In the end, Princess Zixia, Jianghu and Ao Zhan entered again. Princess Zixia sat in a guest seat in a corner of the hall, accompanied by 2 members of the dragon clan. "I didn't know that Master Long had come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, so I didn't greet you. Please forgive me, Master Long," Ao Su said politely. "May I ask why Master Long has come today?" Xiao Hua smiled and replied politely, "I had to go to Dragon Island to pay a visit to the Grand Elder, but I didn't know the way to Dragon Island, so I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace to disturb you. I didn't ask my disciples to notify you in advance." Upon hearing that Xiao Hua wanted to go to Dragon Island, both Ao Su and Ao Xiang heaved a long sigh of relief. Unfortunately, before they had a chance to speak, Xiao Hua continued, "However, aside from this, I have another important matter to attend to, and I came to the West Sea Dragon Palace specifically." Ao Su's heart tightened, and he hurriedly smiled. "May I ask if Master Long has anything to do with Wave Reef?" "Yes, that is indeed the case." Xiao Hua nodded and didn't explain any further. He raised his head and said, "Jianghu, escort Ao Xian and Jing Qing to the main hall, and bring Ao Ing and Ao Yu's corpses as well." "What?" Upon hearing this, Ao Qian flew up from the jade pillar he was sitting on and exclaimed, "How could second brother and third brother?" "I only sent third brother to patrol Wave Reef. Second brother he didn't even leave the West Sea Dragon Palace." Ao Su's face was gloomy, and his eyes flashed with anger. He glared at Ao Xiang fiercely. It was clearly the East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince's idea to send the 4 princes out to patrol. He was kept in the dark. Ao Xiang's expression changed slightly, but he instantly calmed down. He was the one who came up with the idea, and Ao Qian was the one who made the decision. What did it have to do with him if something happened? Jianghu got up and flew out of the hall. Not long after, not only did she escort Ao Xian and Jing Qing, but she also brought Ao Ying and Ao Yu's corpses to the main hall. She also brought the heavily injured Ao Shun, Ao Bai, and the rest of the West Sea Dragon clan to the main hall. Big sister, you. Ao Qian flew above the main hall and looked at Ao Xian in exasperation. He had a pained look on his face. Then he landed beside the corpses of Ao Ying and Ao Yu. He hugged the corpses of the 2 giant dragons and cried, "Second brother, third brother, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have sent you out to patrol." At this point he suddenly realized something and hurriedly said to the outside of the hall, "Quick, quick, send 100,000 members of the Sea clan to welcome 4th brother, 6th brother, and 7th brother. Don't let anything happen to them." "Yes, your highness, your subordinate has received the order." Outside the palace door, a dragon general immediately responded and urged his dragon body to fly out. Seeing that the dragon general had left, Ao Qian stood at the entrance of the main hall and looked outside for a long time, like a parent waiting for their child to return. Xiao Hua sat on a huge jade chair and looked on indifferently. Although his figure didn't match the jade chair, the aura of the crimson dragon crown was like a mountain weighing down on the hearts of all the dragons, and no one dared to look directly at this human grand ascension stage being. First Crown Prince. Ao Su waited for a moment before reminding, "If I'm not mistaken, the 3 crown princes should be on their way back from their patrol. The West Sea is the foundation of the West Sea Dragon Palace, and since they're the crown princes of the West Sea Dragon Palace, they should be responsible for patrolling. Don't give up on eating just because of some other mishap." "Yes, Dragon Envoy, you're right." Ao Qian replied in a low voice before silently turning around and saying, "My West Sea Dragon Palace was very lively before. Father was handling government affairs on the dragon throne, and the 9 of us were playing around in the main hall. Now that I've lost 2 of my brothers, I'm a little flustered." At this point Ao Qian bowed to Xiao Hua and said, "Now that Dragon Master Xiao has come to the West Sea Dragon Palace, I'll have to ask Dragon Master Xiao to make the decision. I'm a little afraid to face reality. I'm an outsider, and it's not good for me to interfere too much in the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace." Xiao Hua replied with a smile, "That day the Dragon King of the East Sea Ao Qian specially reminded me. Therefore this matter should be presided over by Ao Su, Dragon Envoy Ao." "Alright." Ao Su thought for a moment, raised his head to look at Ao Xiang and replied, "I'll preside over this matter with the East Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince. I'll listen to Dragon Envoy." Ao Xiang didn't dare to refuse and nodded in agreement. Then Ao Su looked around and waved his hand to signal for most of the dragon generals and sea race to leave, leaving only a few generals behind. Then he ordered Ao Shun and Ao Bai to explain the situation. Ao Shun and Ao Bai naturally didn't dare to hide anything, and told him everything about the Lingbo Reef. Then Ao Yu's subordinates also told him about their own experiences. Finally Ao Su's face darkened. He looked at Ao Xian, suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in a deep voice, "Ao Xian, what they said just now is the truth?" Ao Xian said in a low voice, "That's right." Ao Su sighed and said, "Sai, tell me how you discussed, how you schemed. Tell me everything in detail." Ao Xian had no choice at this time. She told him all the details of how she discussed with Ao Ying and how to kill Ao Yu. As for the truth, there was no proof. In the end Ao Xian argued, "I actually didn't have any other ideas, but because I couldn't stand Ao Ying's bewitchment I did this." Killing Ao Ying was also Ao Ying's own bewitchment? Ao Su sneered, looked at Jing Qing and asked, "Jing Qing, it seems that St. Jiang has a big plan. If Dong Tian River can come to the West Sea, why can't St. Jiang?" Jing Qing sneered, "As far as I know, the Redland River Dragon tribe has come to the West Sea a long time ago." Ao Su wanted Jing Qing to confess, but looking at him he was afraid that he wouldn't tell the truth. Ao Su thought for a moment and said, "I can't make a decision on this matter, so I'll put you in the prison of the West Sea Dragon Palace first. I'll report the details to Dragon Island, and Ao Xiang will report to the East Sea Dragon Palace. We'll talk about it when there's news." After that Ao Su looked at Xiao Hua respectfully and asked, "Dragon Master, what do you think of this?" "Of course." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Dragon Master, you're fair. I'm relieved." "That's good." Ao Su replied, This junior will order people to prepare the teleportation channel to Dragon Island. This junior has a duty and cannot accompany Master Long to Dragon Island. This matter is just right. Master Long, please pass on this junior's opinion and let the elders decide. Chapter 4699. Don't be impatient, don't be impatient. Xiao Hua smiled faintly and waved his hand saying, regarding this matter, this old man has another opinion, listen to me first. O Dragon Teacher Xiao, please speak. Ao Su was stunned for a second. Then his gaze swept over Jianghu as if he had already understood something. During the Jade Lake Conference, the various forces venerables have already decided that our Dao Gate will set up a defense against the world-destroying strange insects, preventing them from harassing the West Sea, and preventing them from attacking the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua said, on that day the Dragon Hall's second elder also had the intention to invite this old man to oversee the West Sea Dragon Palace, but this old man is a Dao Gate cultivator, how can I oversee the Dragon Palace? Therefore, before the second elder could say anything, this old man had already refused. Previously, this old man had thought that our Fortune Gate's disciples only needed to eliminate the strange insects at the West Sea's border, and did not need to care about the West Sea Dragon Palace's matters, avoiding any disputes with the West Sea Dragon Palace's sea tribes. However, through this matter, this old man discovered that the West Sea Dragon Palace is not stable because the Dragon Palace's lord is not present, and various forces are trying to gain benefits in the West Sea. Just look at Ao Xian, who is already married into the St. River's Dragon tribe, but she actually led a foreign force to kill her two brothers. That Thousand Beast Sacred Grounds Crimson Ground River Dragon tribe has also extended their hands to the Dragon Palace. Dragon Envoy Ao Xiang, such a chaotic West Sea Dragon Palace has already become an unstable rear, how can our Fortune Gate's disciples be at ease to resist the strange insects? Who can guarantee that when our Fortune Gate's disciples are fighting a bloody battle, some unknown force will not stab us in the back? Who could guarantee that the already murky waters of the West Sea wouldn't become even more murky and blood wouldn't seep in? And if they can't, then this old man feels that our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our disciples, our Fortune Gate should be responsible for our Fortune Gate's rear, and our Fortune Gate should be responsible for the West Sea's peace and stability. Ao Su thoughtfully looked at Ao Xiang and asked, Ao Xiang, can you guarantee this? Ao Xiang was tongue-tied, how could he dare to guarantee this? Facing Ao Ing and Ao Yu who were killed because of their schemes, even if the Lord of the East Sea was here he could not guarantee, right? Dragon Teacher, what do you mean? Ao Su asked. My Fortune Gate wants to send a disciple to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua said indifferently, this disciple will not comment on any of the affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace, nor will he interfere with any of the internal affairs of the West Sea Dragon Palace. But he has the right to know everything that happens in the West Sea Dragon Palace, and he has the right to pass on any information that is harmful to our Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate's disciples are humans after all, isn't it inappropriate for them to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace? Ao Su pondered for a moment and intentionally sent the topic into Xiao Hua's hands. He said, Master Xiao, please understand. Aha, rest assured, Dragon Envoy Ao. Xiao Hua laughed, there are also members of the Dragon clan among my Fortune Gate's disciples. As he said, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Jianghu, you come over. Yes, Master. Jianghu was overjoyed. She hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Currently, all matters related to my Fortune Gate are being handled by this old man's disciple, Lu Yi. Xiao Hua said to Ao Su. And Jianghu is Lu Yi's wife. She is a member of the Dragon clan, and before marrying into my Fortune Gate, she was the little princess of the Holy Paradise River. This old man has decided that she will represent my Fortune Gate to guard the West Sea Dragon Palace. And Ao Su nodded slightly and smiled. This junior has long heard that the Holy Paradise River's Dragon clan has produced an outstanding commander, but I didn't expect this Dragon clan member to have already married into the Fortune Gate. Master Zhao's arrangement is wonderful. Jianghu is a member of the Dragon clan, and she is also the wife of the Fortune Gate sect chief's disciple. This junior has no objections. However, this junior cannot make the decision on this matter. I need to send a message to the Dragon Island, and senior can go to the Dragon Island to explain everything. As for the East Sea Dragon Palace, Crown Prince needs to send a message. Yes, this junior will report to Royal Father. Ao Xiang hurriedly stood up and answered, but Royal Father does not. Jianghu glanced at Xiao Hua and smiled faintly. She said to Ao Xiang, I'm afraid Crown Prince has misheard. My sect chief has decided to let me guard the West Sea Dragon Palace on behalf of the Fortune Gate. This is my Fortune Gate's decision. You only need to send a message. As for how the East Sea Dragon King will respond, that is your East Sea Dragon Palace's matter, and has nothing to do with my Fortune Gate. AI, as expected of the Dragon Clan with the ambition to rule the West Sea Dragon Palace. Xiaohua sighed. Jianghang's words were ingenious and dignified. If Xiaohua had said these words, it would be considered bullying the weak, but if Jianghang said these words, not only would it raise the Fortune Gate's prestige, it would also establish Jianghang's foundation in the West Sea Dragon Palace. That's right, this old man has the same intention. Xiaohua said to Ao Su, "Is the transmission array to the Dragon Island ready? This old man's matter is 100 times more important than the West Sea Dragon Palace's internal strife. It cannot be delayed." Ao Su was very happy to see Xiaohua inserting his forces into the West Sea Dragon Palace without shedding a drop of blood, because the Dragon Island had originally planned to let Xiaohua restrain the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Moreover, he also understood that even if the East Sea Dragon Palace's lord received this news, not to mention that what was done could not be undone, even if Xiaohua waited for his decision, Ao Su would have to consider the consequences of not letting Jianghang enter the West Sea Dragon Palace. Because the Fortune Gate's disciples could find an excuse at any time, saying that the West Sea Dragon Palace's situation would affect their safety. At that time, if the Fortune Gate forced their way into the West Sea Dragon Palace, it would not only be the West Sea Dragon Palace that would lose face, but also the East Sea Dragon Palace's reputation. Therefore Ao Su believed that the East Sea Dragon Palace would make a wise choice and accept the fact that Jianghang was overseeing the West Sea Dragon Palace. Therefore Ao Su hurriedly smiled and said, "Dragon Teacher Xiao, please wait a moment, the transmission array to the Dragon Island is not that easy to set up. On one hand, the transmission array needs to be activated, and on the other hand, we need to obtain the Dragon Island's approval through a transmission array. So troublesome." Xiaohua frowned and grumbled in displeasure. "This matter involves my Dragon Island's defense, so I ask for Dragon Teacher Xiao's forgiveness," Ao Su carefully explained. At this time Xiaohua raised his head again, looking outside the West Sea Dragon Palace and said with a smile, "He came just in time, looks like he should also make a trip to the Dragon Island." Ao Su was slightly taken aback, somewhat puzzled, and wanted to release his spiritual sense. At this time, outside the West Sea Dragon Palace, a kind of raging dragon's might came from the sea, instantly enveloping the entire main hall, and even the entire Dragon Palace. A kind of indescribable complex feeling emerged from the bottom of Ao Su and the other dragons' hearts, whether it was fear, respect, or worship. Ao Su's heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly flew up from the jade pillar, exclaiming in surprise, "Could it be?" Boom boom boom. The originally quiet jade-like seawater suddenly emitted a rumbling sound. Layer after layer of dragon tattoos mysteriously appeared in every inch of the seawater. None of the dragon tribe members could remain still. Some of them could not endure the heavy pressure of the dragon's might and crawled on the ground. Some of them trembled and forcefully supported themselves. Even Ao Su curled up his dragon tail, not daring to reveal his dragon body under the dragon's might. His surprise was mixed with bitterness. He understood that this was a kind of natural suppression that a high-grade dragon instinctively had over a low-grade dragon, and it was not something that could be resisted by any strength. "Hee fellow Taoist Yun." Xiaohua patted the crimson dragon crown on top of his head. In an instant, its brilliance spread across the entire West Sea Dragon Palace, slightly reducing the invincible dragon's might. After that, he flew out of the main hall, laughed and said, "You should restrain your dragon's might a little. Otherwise, before you can swim to the West Sea Dragon Palace, your dragon descendants will all turn into sieves." Upon hearing Xiaohua's voice, a dignified voice echoed out from the sea, "Even if I restrain my dragon's might, they will still not be able to stand in front of me." Along with the voice, the dragon's might retracted like a tidal wave. In the distance, a golden light flickered, and a few flaky shadows emerged from the water. When they landed in front of Xiaohua, they rushed to a spot and transformed into a fist-sized ball of light. Swoosh! Right after the ball of light was formed, it exploded noiselessly, revealing a huge dragon like an ink brush. Wasn't he Reverend Yun? Reverend Yun was right. Although he had retracted his dragon's might, the unparalleled upper-grade pressure still came from the hearts of Ao Su and the other dragons. Their bodies were still trembling and they could not remain calm. Nevertheless, Ao Su dared not to be negligent. He forced himself to endure the pressure, then raised his dragon head respectfully and cried out, Junior Ao Su, the second elder of the Dragon Palace, offers greetings Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun raised his dragon head and coiled his dragon body. Immediately, a golden light flickered again, and Reverend Yun transformed into his human form. The innate upper-grade pressure immediately vanished. Then he raised his hand and said, "You may rise." "Thank you, Reverend." Ao Su felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his mind. He hastily transformed into his human form and answered with a flattering smile. Then the group of dragons hurriedly bowed and greeted him. Reverend Yun looked at them from time to time and nodded. "Fellow Taoist Yun, please take a seat." Xiao Hua said smilingly, "In this dragon palace I can never be compared with you. Fellow Taoist, you are too polite." Reverend Yun nodded slightly and sat down on the seat of honor. Xiao Hua, Ao Su and the others sat beside him. "Fellow Taoist Yun, you're quite fast." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I thought you wouldn't be able to make it to the Dragon Island." Reverend Yun looked around and asked, "Didn't Ao Shi forbid our fortune gate from meddling with the West Ocean Dragon Palace? Why did fellow Taoist touch his reverse scale?" "Hee, fellow Taoist, you may not know, but this is what happened." Xiao Hua told Reverend Yun the whole story in front of Ao Su, and finally said, "I was worried that something might happen to the West Ocean Dragon Palace again, so I sent Jianghu to guard the palace." Chapter 4700. "Oh, so that's how it is." Reverend Yun nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, 40% of our Fortune Gate's disciples have entered the West Ocean, and are looking for a place to settle down. However, they are not familiar with the West Ocean, and haven't found a suitable island. That's why I thought of coming to the West Ocean Dragon Palace to ask." "Senior." Ao Su hurriedly said, "Junior knows of a blessed land in the depths of the West Ocean. The heaven and earth energy there is abundant, and is suitable to be the Fortune Gate's foundation. If Senior needs it, Junior can point it out to you." "Where is it?" Reverend Yun raised his head and asked. Ao Su quickly took out a dragon shell and handed it over to Reverend Yun. "Senior, please take a look." "I won't take a look." Reverend Yun took the dragon shell and handed it over to Jianghu. "Jianghu, take a look. If it's suitable, let me send a message to Louis. He's worried about it." "Yes, disciple understands." Jianghu answered and took the dragon shell. She released her yuan sense to check it, and a joyful expression emerged on her face. Then she hurried away. After Jianghu left, another dragon general swam in and said respectfully, "Seniors, the teleportation channel to the Dragon Island is ready." "Good." Xiao Hua rose to his feet and said smilingly, "Fellow Taoist Yun, as the saying goes, it's better to come at the right time than to come at the right time. Come with me to the Dragon Island." "All right." Reverend Yun nodded and rose to his feet. Ao Su also hurried ahead of Reverend Yun and Xiao Hua, leading the man and dragon to the back palace of the West Ocean Dragon Palace. Judging from his eagerness, he did not look like a second elder of the Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua had used the teleportation formation of the West Ocean Dragon Palace before, so he was not unfamiliar with it. Inside a palace that was several thousand feet in size, black and white light surged out like waves. Xiao Hua knew that this was the teleportation formation of the West Ocean Dragon Palace. When the group of dragons in bright armor saw Xiao Hua and the others coming over, they all bowed and saluted, opening the door of the hall. Xiao Hua flew into the main hall and saw a huge space. This space was filled with green seawater. At this moment, the seawater outside the space was still like a crystal, but in the center of the space, all the seawater was rotating at an extremely fast speed. This rotation seemed to have no rules. Some water flowed from the inside to the outside, some flowed from the outside to the inside, and some flowed from the outside to the inside. There were also some flowed like ribbons that wound around the surroundings, and as these flowed, a black and white brilliance shone out from the seawater. Ao Su landed at the edge of the space. He glanced at the huge rotation and said in a low voice, "Xiao Longshi, Senior Kue, please wait for a moment. Wait for me to open the teleportation channel and send the two of you to Dragon Island." As he spoke, Ao Su took out a golden token from the long bay. This token was in the shape of a dragon, and thumb-sized dragon patterns were engraved on it. Ao Su spat out a mouthful of dragon breath onto the token, and the dragon seemed to come alive, falling towards the black and white spinning. Boom! That token fell into the spinning and a huge roar sounded everywhere. Then Xiao Hua saw countless light shadows were born from the spinning like flood dragons, and rushed into the void while hissing. After a few breaths, the void also began to tremble. Tens of thousands of heaven and earth yuan qi crashed into the spinning light shadows, and waves of ghostly wails and wolf-like strange sounds sounded. As the heaven and earth Yuan Qi crashed in, the entire spinning began to converge. Streaks of light shadows shuttled back and forth in the main hall like flying swords, and layers of obscure waves also spread around the main hall. Finally, with a whimper, the huge spinning disappeared, and a strange whirlpool appeared in the middle of the main hall. This whirlpool was black and white, and its shape was different from all directions. All the light shadows were torn into strange shapes inside the whirlpool, and these light shadows fell into the center of the whirlpool, forming an extremely dazzling dragon-shaped brilliance. Senior Yun Xiaolongshu. Ao Su said respectfully when he saw the teleportation tunnel was completed. The teleportation tunnel to Dragon Island has been opened. Previously, when I sent a message to the elders of Dragon Palace, I only told them that Xiaolongshu was going there, and I did not mention Senior Yun. It's too late to send a message now. Therefore, if Dragon Island has neglected you in any way, please forgive us, Senior Yun. Don't worry about it. Reverend Yun waved his hand, controlling his dragon body to rush into the dragon-shaped brilliance at the center of the whirlpool. Xiao Hua nodded at Ao Su, then followed him into the teleportation tunnel. As soon as Reverend Yun entered the whirlpool, a powerful suction force came from the brilliance and enveloped him. When he flew in with the suction force, the brilliance expanded rapidly, and when the dragon-shaped brilliance looked similar to Reverend Yun's, the dragon-shaped brilliance was torn apart. Layers of black and white light shadows rushed into the void, forming a huge tunnel. The tunnel was filled with dragon runes and black and white light spots reflected in it, looking like huge dragon scales. When Reverend Yun's dragon body rushed into the tunnel, his entire body was stretched and twisted, stretching towards the other end of the tunnel. Xiao Hua followed Reverend Yun into the tunnel, and the same thing happened to him as well. At an unknown location at the bottom of the ocean, a dragon was glinting brightly, driving away the surrounding darkness. In front of the dragon were a dozen dragon generals, who were nervously looking at a huge space before them. There was no light in the space, but strangely, there were some unknown ripples that came and went from time to time, violently lashing at the seawater in the space. Amidst the roaring and roaring of the seawater, the entire space looked like a giant beast. Whoa! Suddenly, a shrill cry rang out from the space. Even though they were in the seawater, they could still hear it very clearly. Along with the cry, one figure after another began to shoot out from the darkness like fireflies. He's coming, he's coming. The dragon at the front cried out in a low voice, waving his dragon claw and saying, "Hurry up! Dragon Master Xiao will be here soon." As the dragon cried out in a low voice, the seawater in the space suddenly began to roll and roll, forming another huge whirlpool in the blink of an eye. Numerous huge threads of light were seen twisting and flowing in the whirlpool, brightening up the seawater within several hundred miles. Rumble. A loud boom rang out from the center of the whirlpool, and it began to collapse at an incredible speed. A grayish-white mist overflowed from the void, and then a very powerful dragon pressure came seeping out from it. The group of dragons began to tremble as they looked at each other in dismay. They slowly coiled up their gigantic dragon bodies to resist the terrifying dragon might. They couldn't understand how Xiaolongshu could possess such a terrifying dragon might. Roar! An enormous dragon shadow twisted and rushed out from the whirlpool, wheeling in front of the group of dragons for a brief moment before finally condensing into a mighty dragon standing proudly amidst the seawater. No, that's not right. Reverend Yun? The group of dragons was startled, then suddenly realized who it was. When Reverend Yun retracted the dragon pressure, they scrambled to prostrate themselves on the surface of the seawater and cried out respectfully, "Greetings, Senior Yun. Get up." Reverend Yun stretched his dragon body and said with a loud voice, "You don't have to be so courteous." "Yes, Senior." The group of dragons rose to their feet respectfully. At the same time, a bright shadow flashed beside Reverend Yun. Xiao Hua's slim and tall body first twisted and turned, then he straightened up and revealed himself. Behind Xiao Hua's figure, the huge whirlpool gradually calmed down, and the light figure also gradually disappeared. But after a brief moment, the surrounding space returned to its previous tranquility. The group of dragons dared not to be negligent. They hurriedly stepped forward and bowed, "Greetings, Dragon Master Xiao." Xiao Hua answered, then raised his head and looked at Long Yan. "So, this place is not Dragon Island." "Yes, Dragon Master Xiao." The leading dragon hastily explained, "This is the teleportation tunnel used by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas to Dragon Island. It is very close to Dragon Island. Seniors, please board Long Yan. It will take you less than an hour to reach Dragon Island." "All right." Xiaohua nodded, then gave Reverend Yun a look and said, "Let's board Long Yen. It looks like the Dragon Palace doesn't want you and me to know the location of Dragon Island." "Dragon Master Xiao, you misunderstood us." Upon hearing Xiaohua's words, the dragon was taken aback. He quickly bowed and said, "It's not that the elders don't want seniors to know the location of Dragon Island, but if we want to enter Dragon Island, we have to rely on Long Yen. Save your explanation." Reverend Yun waved his hand and said, "You just need to open Long Yen." "Yes, Senior Yun." The dragon moved his body and led a few of the other dragons to open Long Yen, while the rest of the dragons continued to surround the calmed space, keeping their guard up. As soon as Xiaohua and Reverend Yun entered Long Yen, the Long Yen shook violently. Layers of light rose from the top of Long Yan's head, rushing toward its tail like a stream of spring water. After a few rounds of impact, the light transformed into streams of light and plunged into the boundless ocean, plunging the entire unknown space back into the darkness of the seabed. Xiaohua's cultivation base had improved by leaps and bounds compared to when he first set foot on Dragon Island. Therefore, the dragon formation of Long Yen could no longer restrict his divine will. However, Xiaohua only released his divine will when Long Yen was activated. After giving it a brief glance, he retracted his divine will and only talked to Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun told him everything that happened after Xiaohua left Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. In the end, Xiaohua waved his hand and sealed the surrounding space. "Fellow Taoist, I have bad news." After that, Xiaohua told Reverend Yun about the 4 continents and said with a wry smile, "Things have greatly exceeded my expectations. The 3 continents do not have any passageways that lead to other realms, and there is an immortal realm array separating the 4 continents. If we want to kill Mayfly, we have to destroy this immortal realm array." Fellow Taoist, you don't have to say anything." Reverend Yun smiled and answered, "Fellow Taoist, you can make the decision on this matter. When you need me, just let me know. I think even if it is an immortal realm array, I can still break it with my Pangu axe." Chapter 47:01. "Fellow Taoist, you're being too optimistic." Xiaohua shook his head helplessly and explained, "When I found out about the immortal formation, the first thing I thought of was your Pangu axe. But now there are 2 difficulties. First, we don't know where the immortal formation is. It's too advanced. Even people as powerful as the Golden Winged Rock and the Vairocana revered sage think the West Ocean is the edge of the world. How can we find it? Second, even if we do find the immortal formation, do you think your strength is stronger than Senior Suji and Fairy Xingyu?" "No." Reverend Yun shook his head without hesitation. "Moreover, fellow Taoists should also understand that the same magic treasure in the hands of different cultivators will have different effects. Although you have mastered the Pangu axe, you only have the power to strike once. It's far from being able to split the immortal formation." Reverend Yun frowned and said with a wry smile, "Fellow Taoist, you don't seem to have any confidence." "Fellow Taoist, you're right." Xiaohua said honestly. "I'm in a mess now and I don't know what to do. I'm like an ant on a hot pan. Oh, I'm stronger than an ant, because I know I'm on a hot pan, and I'm trying my best to find a way out." "A way seems to be hard to find," Reverend Yun said thoughtfully. "Because the nests of ants like Thunder Temple, Immortal Palace, Dragon Island and Great Sage Temple are all on this hot pan. They never know that they're on a hot pan. You can think of it this way," Xiaohua explained. "The 4 continents are separated by an immortal formation. This is an ancient secret. It seems that the immortal realm doesn't want the cultivators of the 4 continents to know about it. Even someone as powerful as Fairy Xingyu doesn't dare to tell Su Ji. However, under such a taboo situation, Fairy Xingyu was able to leave behind a clue. Therefore, I don't believe that the Buddhist sect, Confucian cultivators, Dragon Clan, and Demon Clan won't have some clues about their places of inheritance. Even if there are some clues, if there's no way to break the formation, it's useless." Reverend Yun shook his head. "Just as fellow Taoist has said, this is an immortal formation. Even Goddess Xingyu has asked you to give up, so I'm afraid you're not strong enough to do it." Before Reverend Yun could finish his words, Xiaohua said resolutely, "Where there is a will, there is a way. If it was an ordinary matter, I could slack off. However, this was the 3 rivers and 4 seas. It was the life and death of billions of creatures in the 3 continents. I dare not be negligent." Reverend Yun nodded at Xiaohua's righteous words and said, "Since fellow Taoist has such an idea, I'll support it." The worst-case scenario was to fight the world-destroying ephemera to the death in the 3 continents. Others might not be able to survive, but do you think our Fortune Gate's disciples won't they have a way to survive? That is our final plan." Xiaohua laughed. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, how can our Fortune Gates disciples not have a way out? At worst, we can send our Fortune Gates disciples and Shao country's people to the Xinhua continent. Then I will cultivate in seclusion and ascend, leaving this place filled with ephemera. Fellow Taoist, don't be careless. Reverend Yun suddenly tensed up and reminded, let's not talk about whether the changes in the laws of heaven and earth will affect the Xinhua continent when you ascend. However, don't forget that the souls killed by the world-destroying ephemera cannot fall into the cycle of reincarnation. This has changed the laws of the 3 continents. When the time comes, even if you cultivate to the ascension realm, due to the changes in the laws of heaven and earth, you will not be able to ascend to the immortal world. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air, and the expression on his face changed slightly. He had not thought of this. He had been secretly delighted, thinking that he had an extra way out compared to others. In the end, if he could not resist the world-destroying ephemera, he would bring a group of disciples and as many humans as possible to ascend to the immortal world. He had not thought about the changes in the laws of heaven and earth. When Reverend Yun mentioned this, Xiao Hua immediately understood. Just like what the 7-colored divine seashell had said, the world-destroying ephemera came from the upper realm. 1 or 2 of them were not a big deal. It was like a pond with 1 or 2 extra stones. No one knew what would happen, but the number of world-destroying ephemera was terrifying. If there were millions of stones in the pond, would the entire pond still be a pond? Without water, the pond would turn into a mountain. And the 3 continents occupied by the world-destroying ephemera, what would they become? The void was blocked, and the natural energy and righteous energy were devoured. How could there be a passage to ascend? A dead end, an absolute dead end. Even if they ascended, they would not be able to get out of this dead end. Xiao Hua's heart turned cold as he forcefully retorted, fellow Taoist Xiao, don't forget that during the Star Moon Palace's lecture, there were existences who clearly stated that souls are actually a type of power. The souls that the world destruction Mayfly devoured should have had their reincarnation power devoured, which is why. While he was speaking, Xiao Hua's expression flickered. He raised his hand and removed the restrictive spell. Then he saw a dragon flying towards them from a distance. When he saw Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun, he bowed and said, Seniors, Dragon Island is in sight. We can enter it in half the time it takes to finish a pot of tea. Good. Xiao Hua put away his wild thoughts and nodded. Lead the way. Seniors, please, said the dragon respectfully as he led Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun to the exit of Dragon Island. Rumble. Dragon Island trembled slightly and stopped. Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun flew out of Dragon Island. The 9 elders of Dragon Palace had been waiting for them in front of Dragon Island. When they saw Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun, Great Elder Ao Jia swung his dragon tail and flew to Reverend Yun, bowing and saying, Greetings, Lord Divine Dragon. Greetings, Lord Divine Dragon. Aoe and the other 8 elders did not dare to show any neglect. Although Reverend Yun did not unleash his dragon power, the innate pressure was still emanating from his dragon body. The other 8 elders did not seem to feel any discomfort except for Ao Jia, whose dragon body was trembling slightly. His dragon horn was glinting faintly as it kept washing his head and other parts of his body. When Xiao Hua saw that, he understood that Ao Jia had suffered a serious injury when he self-detonated a thread of his nascent divinity in the folded Emerald Legacy realm. 200 to 300 years was not enough for him to fully recover. Therefore, he quickly gave Reverend Yun a look and gave him a signal with his eyes. Reverend Yun understood. After waving his dragon claws and bowing to the 9 elders, his body flashed with a golden light as he transformed back into his human form. Using the mystic technique of Qingqiu Mountain, he hid the high-grade dragon power into his body. Ao Jia and the other sect elders were greatly shocked when they saw Reverend Yun could control his dragon aura with ease. They knew very well that this dragon aura was innate, and was different from the pressure exerted by human cultivators. It was not something that any dragon could control freely. The 9 elders could not help but exchange a glance with each other. Some of the ideas they had discussed before had changed slightly. Get up. You don't have to call me Lord Divine Dragon. Reverend Yun waved his hand and said, It's better to call me Reverend Yun. Well? Although Ao Jia was delighted, he showed a hesitant expression. After a while, he nodded and said, All right, no matter what you call me, Reverend Yun is the 5-clawed Divine Dragon of Dragon Island. This is an undeniable fact. After that, he turned to Xiao Hua and said, Welcome, Dragon Teacher Xiao, to Dragon Island. Grand Elder. Xiao Hua smiled, stepped forward and bowed to Ao Jia. It's been a long time. How is Grand Elder's body? Without the oppressive dragon power, Aojia's dragon body no longer trembled. He looked no different from an ordinary dragon. Aojia answered with a smile, "Thanks to Dragon Teacher Xiao, my body is in great condition. And to tell you the truth, I've profited from a disaster." Aha. At this point Aojia stopped talking. Xiao Hua understood what he meant, and with a big smile on his face he said, "Congratulations, Grand Elder. I've been cultivating for so many years, and there's nothing to be happy about. Instead, I should congratulate Dragon Teacher Xiao and Reverend Yun." Although Aojia was also grinning from ear to ear, he still said with emotion, "It's only been 300 years, but the two of you have gone from unknown cultivators to supreme cultivators of our 3 continents in one fell swoop. This is definitely an unparalleled miracle in the records of the human and dragon races." It was no wonder that Aojia was so moved. The last time Xiao Hua came to Dragon Island, he was only at the 4th or 5th grade of elemental energy. He only came to Dragon Island as a descendant of the dragon bloodline to accompany him for training. In the eyes of Aojia and the other elders, Xiao Hua was only a chess piece with value. And now Xiao Hua had stepped foot on Dragon Island again, and he was already the supreme cultivator of a sect. He could even be said to be the strongest person in the 3 continents. None of the 9 elders of Dragon Palace dared to neglect him, and they all came to welcome him. Who would still dare to treat him as a chess piece? And Xiao Hua's magnificent transformation had only taken a mere 300 years. It had been 300 years. Aojia hadn't even recovered from his previous injury. There's a saying in Dao sect, everyone has their own fate and others can't force it. Xiao Hua smiled and didn't say much. This old man greets Dragon Master Xiao. Second Elder Aoe stepped forward with a smile and bowed. "Is there any urgent matter for Dragon Master Xiao to come to Dragon Island? You and I have just met at the Jade Lake Assembly." This old man had just reported the result of the Jade Lake Assembly to the Grand Elder, and the 9 elders of Dragon Palace had just finished discussing the matter and passed the decision of Dragon Island to the various dragon clans. "Today I suddenly received news that Dragon Master Xiao is coming. This old man is really surprised." Fourth Elder Ao Ding also flew over and said with a smile, "That's right, Dragon Master Xiao. When we received the message from the West Sea Dragon Palace, we only knew that Dragon Master Xiao was coming, but we didn't expect that Reverend Yun would also come. This really caught us off guard." Grand Elder Ao Jia was even more calm. He looked at Reverend Yun and asked, "Could it be that Reverend Yun doesn't want to be the Fortune Gate's old master and wants to come to Dragon Palace? If so, this old man welcomes you. This old man is willing to give up the position of Grand Elder." Chapter 4702. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw these old dragons who were even more cunning than foxes trying to force him to declare his stance. He hastily waved his hand and said, "Elders, you're overthinking. Today Xiao Hua was startled when he saw the faint smile on Aojia's face. He suddenly understood that Aojia wasn't forcing him to declare his stance, but Aojia was worried that he was here to cause trouble for Dragon Island. Previously, when he was only a 5th grade Yuan-Chi expert, Aojia and the other elders of Dragon Island used him as a chess piece to deal with the Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas, and even Ao Zhan. Now that he had transcended from the chessboard, Aojia was afraid that he would bring up old scores, so he brought up Reverend Yun the moment they met. Firstly, it was to divert attention, and secondly, it was to express his stance. He even reminded Xiao Hua that Reverend Yun was here because of Dragon Island. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, these dragons are too cunning. I can't scheme against them. Although he had figured it out, Xiao Hua decided to play dumb. He continued, "I'm here today for the world-destroying ephemera. It has nothing to do with Dragon Island's affairs. Of course, if Great Elder thinks of something, please remind I would be happy to ask Great Elder for advice." World-destroying ephemera? Aojia was so cunning that he directly ignored the meaning of Xiao Hua's words. He asked in astonishment, "Is it that strange insect?" That's right. Xiao Hua didn't want to beat around the bush with these old loaches who had lived for God knows how many years. He went straight to the point. "I've received some information and know that this matter is different from the discussion at the Nacre Lake. This matter is more troublesome, so I came to Dragon Island in a hurry. After all, I'm the Dragon Master of Dragon Island. I want to discuss this matter with the elders first, then decide how to explain it to the Immortal Palace, Thunder Temple, and Great Sage Hall. Dragon Teacher Xiao came to my Dragon Island first. It's not out of my expectations." The second Elder Aoe laughed loudly. "Dragon Teacher Xiao, when you set up the West Ocean in the future, my Dragon Island will definitely help you. Old Gauchen will definitely regret banishing the Fortune Gate from Soaring Dragon Mountain Range. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, Second Elder doesn't seem to understand the weight of the words world-exterminating mayfly. If this Xiao's guess is correct, then it would be strange if the insect disaster couldn't be avoided. The 3 rivers and 4 seas, the 3 continents. Among the billions of creatures, there wouldn't be a single, perhaps. Sai, forget it, let's talk inside the Dragon Palace. Oh. Aoe was dumbfounded. Just as Xiao Hua had said, the dragon race had always been a high and mighty existence in the 3 continents. Not to mention that ordinary dragons did not bother to interact with other humans, even the dragon race had split off from the demon race. Dragon Island was a holy land that existed at the same time as the Great Holy Temple. Of course, at the Jade Pool meeting, the mayfly strange insects had shown incomparable strangeness. However, Aoe and the other dragons did not raise the level of destruction to the level of true destruction. They only thought that it was a serious disaster. Since Xiao Hua had spoken in such a serious manner, the hearts of all 9 elders of the Dragon Palace thumped at the same time. Ao Jia dared not to be negligent, and immediately invited Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun to the Dragon Palace. Since one was the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island, and the other was the Patriarch of the 11th clan of the Dragon Island, existences that were even higher than the dragon race of the 3 continents, the Dragon Palace did not have any illusions. There were only 10 dragon pillars standing erect in the Dragon Palace. Reverend Yun, please get on the dragon pillar. When all the elders of the dragon race entered the Dragon Palace, Ao Jia was the first to ask Reverend Yun to sit on the dragon pillar. Reverend Yun smiled and shook his head. I still want to live a carefree life in the Fortune Gate. Why would I sit on the dragon pillar for no reason? That is your position and also Ao Zhan's position. When second elder Aoe heard that, his expression changed slightly. After all, Ao Zhan's matter had taken shape, but it had not reached the stage where he could be promoted to Patriarch and sit in the Dragon Palace. But when Grand Elder Ao Jia heard that, he immediately clapped his hands and said, So, Reverend Yun also has the same idea. What a coincidence. Elders, what do you think? Of course, 4th Elder Ao Ding also clapped his hands and said, What Grand Elder said is right. Ao Zhan had shown great potential during the Stacking Emerald Legacy Realms trial. This old man also thinks that this matter is feasible. The 2nd Elder Aoe could not take it anymore. He retorted, Great Elder, the Gue clan's rebellion has a serious impact. Although the Dragon Island has already issued an order to correct it, many things can't be resolved with just a few words. If we act too hastily, we might end up making a fool of ourselves. Moreover, Ao Zhan's strength is too weak. How can he sit on the dragon pillar? What do you think, Dragon Master Xiao? Ao Jia did not answer. Instead, he turned his head and asked Xiao Hua. Reverend Yun's words were spoken under Xiao Hua's instructions. When he heard Ao Jia's question, Xiao Hua put on an act and said, Grand Elder, this is your Dragon Island's internal affairs. How can I interfere without permission? Dragon Master Xiao is wrong. Ao Jia smiled and said, Since you are the Dragon Master of our Dragon Island, you naturally have the right to speak. Otherwise, wouldn't the title of Dragon Master become a joke? Besides, Ao Zhan and Dragon Master Xiao are closely related, and some of his opportunities were created by Dragon Master Xiao. If Dragon Master Xiao is not qualified to speak, then who in the entire Dragon Clan is qualified to evaluate Ao Zhan? Xiao Hua nodded and answered, If so, I'll tell you my opinion. In my opinion, Ao Zhan is the descendant of the Hui clan's patriarch, and he deserves to be the patriarch. Besides, the Dragon Island originally had 10 clans. Now that one clan is missing, it is not perfect. The Hui clan should return to the Dragon Island. Of course, what second elder said is true. Ao Zhan's cultivation base is too weak, and he can't even be compared with Ao Shen. How can he sit on the dragon pillar? Therefore, we might as well give him the title of second elder or prospective elder, so that he can have the motivation to cultivate. Dragon Master Xiao. Second Elder Aoe still frowned and said, Even the second elder of our Dragon Palace has to be at the edge of the 9th tier of origin energy. With Ao Zhan's strength, it is not enough. Then we'll settle for the next best thing. Xiao Hua suggested, Give Ao Zhan an empty position and let him strengthen his cultivation. When his strength reaches the 8th tier of origin energy, he can enter the Dragon Palace as a second elder. When he reaches the 9th tier, he can enter the Dragon Palace as the 10th elder. Dragon Master Xiao, you're being too childish. Aoe said unhappily, How can the Dragon Palace give him an empty position? Besides, how can we make a promise to enter the Dragon Palace as the 10th elder now? Second Elder. Ao Jia suddenly faced Aoe and said, "Now the West Ocean Dragon Palace is weak. If we kill the mayflies and cause trouble in the West Ocean, I'm afraid it will affect the dragon race of the Four Seas. Why don't we let Ao Zhan be the commander of the Four Seas and let him lead the dragon race of the Hui race to conquer the Four Seas and kill the strange insects?" This Aoe heard and hesitated. Perfected Yun said, "I think it's suitable. Since the mayfly is in front of us and we want the Hui clan and Dragon clan to work for us, how can we not give them some benefits?" "Alright, it's settled then." Ao Jia did not allow Aoe to object any further. He said, "Master Xiao, I've heard from the Second Elder about the power of the world-destroying strange insect. To be honest, such low-level insects have always had unimaginable mystical abilities after mutation. However, the mystical abilities after mutation are usually very weak. Since Master Xiao can casually kill the strange insect king that exceeds the 10th grade of essence power with spirit pills from other realms, with the vastness of the Four Seas, there must be similar spiritual herbs and other items that can replace it. Elders, please take a seat." Xiao Hua knew that Ao Jia and the others had underestimated the power of the mayfly. He sighed and said, "Allow me to explain in detail." Ao Jia and the other 9 patriarchs sat cross-legged on the 9 dragon pillars, while Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun sat cross-legged in the center of the palace. After that, Xiao Hua told them everything he knew, including the Dawn Rain continent, the immortal formation, and the origin of the world-destroying ephemera. The expressions of Ao Jia Aoe, and the other elders of Dragon Island changed as expected. Finally, Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the 9 elders, starting from Ao Jia, and said, "Now is the critical moment of life and death for the billions of lives in the 3 continents, 3 rivers and 4 seas. This is not an alarmist talk. If we can't find a way to break the array, connect the 4 continents, and let the heterogeneous energy from the Dawn Rain continent come here, even if we stand to the last man, demon, or dragon, we will never be able to destroy the mayfly. Everyone, put away your previous contempt and neglect and think carefully. Is there any record of the immortal array, the 4 continents, and the method to break the array in this dragon palace?" Xiao Hua's words were powerful and resonant. After he spoke, the calm dragon palace was dead silent. Not even waves dared to be stirred up. For the time it took to finish a meal, not a single dragon clan member spoke. It was unknown whether the elders were discussing through voice transmission or if they were pondering on their own. Xiao Hua was also not in a hurry. When he was talking to the elders of Dragon Island, he had also organized his thoughts. The 3 innate divine restrictions he passed were the Taoist array, the demon array, and the Buddhist array. There was no origin array of the Confucian cultivators or the dragon array of the Dragon clan. Therefore, the immortal palace in Dragon Island might not have records of this. His focus should be on the Great Sage Hall and Thunder Temple. Sure enough, after another incense stick's worth of time, Ao Jia opened his mouth and said, "Dragon Master Xiao, what you said is too outrageous. Not to mention that the mayfly has such a great origin, just this immortal array. This old man, no, my entire Dragon Island has never had records of this." The power of the mayfly, Second Elder saw it with his own eyes, Ao Sheng also saw it with his own eyes. That day in the stacked Emerald Legacy realm, a mayfly that was no more than a few zhang long was able to wantonly slaughter numerous dragons. What if 100 zhang or 1,000 zhang long mayflies surrounded the Dragon Island in groups? Xiao Hua indifferently explained. Therefore, Great Elder, don't be careless. Only the worst-case scenario can happen. There is no such thing as the worst-case scenario. Chapter 4703. Yes, I also know about the world-exterminating ephemera. Ao Jia replied. Furthermore, after Second Elder brought Xiao Longshi's message back, my Dragon Island has already checked the ancient records of dragon strategies and dragon laws. Unfortunately, just as Xiao Longshi said, my Dragon Island has no records of the realm passageway, much less the records of the so-called immortal formation. Therefore I am somewhat suspicious of Xiao Longshi's words. The existence of the immortal formation is also unquestionable. Xiao Hua smiled. This Xiao came to the 3 continents from Dawn Rain continent through that immortal formation. However, the passageway this Xiao passed through was simply too coincidental. This passageway is definitely not a good place. This Xiao cannot guarantee that I will be able to find it again, nor can I guarantee that I will be able to pass through it safely. In particular, within that passageway, the great formation is as vast as the heavens. How can this Xiao break the formation? I can only find the location of the formation's core, the flaw, and then I can truly break the formation. No. Ao Jia waved his hand and said, Xiao Longsher misunderstood my meaning. Although what you said is inconceivable, this old man feels that it is extremely possible. In the West Sea. There might be something strange about it. There are some records of this in my dragon strategies. There are even some dragons on my dragon island who mysteriously disappeared in the West Ocean. This old man is only saying that my dragon island does not have any records of the immortal formation, nor do we know of the existence of the 4 great continents. First Elder. Xiao Hua nodded, but he still asked unwillingly, "Are you sure that you have seen all the dragon strategies and dragon laws in the Dragon Palace?" "That's right. This old man can guarantee it." First Elder Ao Jia replied solemnly, "For the past few hundred years, this old man has been concentrating on comprehending the secret techniques of the dragon race. I have flipped through many dragon strategies. Firstly, I was looking for information about the whole race. Secondly, I was looking for the dragon worship and the origin of the strange insects." First Elder. Second Elder Aoe suddenly said, "Even if the dragon race has explored the entire dragon island, they have not seen the true dragon palace, right?" "Oh, that's right." When Ao Jia heard this, he suddenly came to a realization and cried out, "I'm afraid that in the entire dragon island, only the true dragon palace has not been seen. Maybe there are some secrets inside. At this time, Fourth Elder frowned and said, "But the true dragon palace is a place that we can't enter. For so many years there has never been a dragon who could enter." Fourth Elder is wrong. Ninth Elder, who had been silent all this while, said with a smile, "Perhaps no dragon could enter the true dragon palace in the past, but Reverend Yun is here today. He has the bloodline of the 11th clan of the Dragon Island. He will definitely be able to enter." Damn it. This group of old dragons. When Xiao Hua heard the 9th Elder's words, how could he not know that he had fallen into the trap of these 9 elders who were even more cunning than old foxes? Damn it. I remember when we were in the Dragon Palace, Ao Jia had been trying to find out Reverend Yun's background, as if he wanted to do something with Reverend Yun's background. At that time I could use the excuse that Reverend Yun's dragon body had yet to solidify, but I'm afraid I can't do that today. No matter how I think about it, I still fell into the trap of this old dragon. Xiao Hua thought to himself and was about to say something. However, 6th Elder spoke again. 9th Elder is also wrong. In addition to the bloodline of the 11th clan, the true Dragon Palace also needs the Dragon Jade as a token. Alright. Xiao Hua finally understood. Today, when he came to Dragon Island, not only would he not be able to find out any information about the immortal formation, but he would also have to keep the Dragon Jade. Damn it. Is this the legendary saying of going for wool but coming home shorn? However, when he thought of all the benefits he had obtained from Dragon Island, not to mention the fact that Reverend Yun had completely comprehended the heavenly dragon language technique in the Dragon Jade during the several tens of thousands of years he spent in the heavenly prison, Xiao Hua felt it was time for him to return the Dragon Jade to Dragon Island. So, Xiao Hua looked at Ao Jia, nodded and said, If what you said is true, why don't I invite Reverend Yun to the true Dragon Palace with the Dragon Jade? Seeing that Xiao Hua, who had always been stingy, was so generous today and did not discuss any conditions at all, Ao Jia and Aoe were a little worried. They were all surprised and looked at each other. Aoe even whispered, Xiao. Dragon Master Xiao, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Xiao Hua looked at these narrow-minded dragon elders with disdain, and said with a smile, but, phew. When Ao Jia and Aoe heard the word, but, they instantly heaved a long sigh of relief. They finally felt relieved because they knew that although Xiao Hua was calculative, as long as he could agree to his conditions, he would definitely agree to them. Dragon Master Xiao, please speak. Aoe asked happily. Listening to that voice, he felt that it would be very fun. Let Ao Zhan be the 10th Elder of Dragon Island. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Dragon Master Xiao, you are asking for too much. That's impossible. Aoye's answer was extremely smooth. He did not hesitate at all. After he finished speaking, he explained, we have already discussed this matter previously. There's no need to discuss it anymore. What about Long Yu and another dragon who can enter the true Dragon Palace? Xiao Hua's smile was comparable to that of an old fox. Aoye's heart skipped a beat. His dragon body almost slipped off the dragon pillar. He cried out in disbelief, Dragon Master Xiao, are you talking about Ao Xing? That's impossible, right? Ao Jia was trembling with joy as he roared loudly. After all, Aoe had already seen Ao Sheng at the Jade Pool. Although Ao Sheng had the shadow of the dragon god around him, and was obviously trying his best to absorb the essence of the dragon god's dragon core, The strength that Ao Xing displayed was still shallow. When Aoe returned to the Dragon Palace, he also described it truthfully. The elders were overjoyed, but they never thought that Ao Sheng would be qualified to enter the true Dragon Palace. I'm not sure. Xiaohua avoided the topic. I only know that Ao Zhan is qualified to be the 10th elder of the Dragon Palace in the future. Cough cough. Ao Jia coughed, withdrew his surprise and said seriously, Dragon Master Xiao, I know what you're thinking. Whether it's Ao Zhan, Ao Sheng or Xiao Bai, everything has to be done step by step. Don't you humans have a saying that goes, you can't be fat with just one bite? Previously, Second Elder and I have already discussed it. After the apocalyptic war, as long as Ao Zhan has military merits and his strength can meet the requirements, he will definitely be able to take on the responsibility of being the 10th elder of the Dragon Palace. Hearing Ao Jia mention Xiao Bai's name, Xiaohua understood that this cunning old dragon knew everything. This was the only thing that he could force. Therefore Xiaohua smiled and said, since Grand Elder has spoken, let's do it. After that, Xiaohua turned and asked, fellow Taoist Yun, are you willing to make a trip to the true Dragon Palace? I don't mind. With a fearless face, Reverend Yun answered without hesitation, it is my pleasure to do something for the Dragon Clan. Good. Ao Jia and the other 8 elders clapped. With this praise, the matter that the Dragon Palace Master and Xiaohua had discussed earlier was settled. Let's go to the true Dragon Palace. Seeing that there was still a virgin palace in the Dragon Palace, Xiaohua urged anxiously. Ao Jia looked at Aoe and said with a smile, Second Elder, please arrange this matter. I will accompany Dragon Master Xiao and will be there soon. Alright. Second Elder Aoe knew that Ao Jia had something to say to Xiaohua, so he nodded and said to the other elders, the opening of the true Dragon Palace is no small matter. Everyone please come and help. After the other 8 elders flew out of the Dragon Palace, Ao Jia first raised his dragon claw and bowed, thank you Dragon Master Xiao. Xiaohua knew that Ao Jia was talking about the dragon cleansing liquid. He smiled and returned the bow, this is Ao Sheng's filial piety. I'm just fulfilling his filial piety. Yes. Ao Jia sighed, there are not many dragons who are as filial as Ao Sheng in the dragon race. This is also one of the reasons why I favor him so much. Hearing this, Xiaohua glanced at Ao Jia and asked thoughtfully, since he is such a good dragon, why are you willing to let him go to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm to save me? Ao Jia smiled like a fox and said, in this child's heart, you are Dragon Master. Since he is determined to save you, how can I stop him? Since he wants to go, why don't we let the test give him some pressure? I think this will be beneficial for his growth. However, I really didn't expect that. Dragon Master Xiao is indeed Dragon Master Xiao. The moment he stepped out of Dragon Island, he laughed proudly in the 9 heavens and played the human race, the demon race and the dragon race in the palm of his hand. In just a few hundred years, Dragon Master Xiao has already become the most powerful person in the world. Even I can't compare to him. Hee, flattery shouldn't come from Grand Elder's mouth. Xiaohua chuckled and said, moreover, Grand Elder didn't ask me to stay just for this matter, right? Yes, I want to talk to Dragon Master Xiao about 3 things in private. Ao Jia sent a voice transmission mysteriously. Xiaohua was stunned and sent a voice transmission as well. There are actually 3 things? I thought there was only 1. Of course, what Dragon Master Xiao is concerned about is also what I want to talk to Dragon Master Xiao about first. Ao Jia replied with a smile, the few dragons that Dragon Master Xiao sent over earlier, although their memories have been erased and there are no records in Long Su, I already know a little about them after using the Heavenly Dragon Speech technique. Grand Elder. Hearing this, Xiaohua suddenly understood and hurriedly asked, you haven't recovered from your injuries, how can you still use the Heavenly Dragon Speech technique? There is always a priority for things. I have received such a great favor from Dragon Master Xiao, so I have to repay it. Ao Jia smiled and replied casually. Chapter 4704. Although Ao Jia's words sounded like he was trying to curry favor with Xiaohua, in Xiaohua's ears, there was a different feeling in his heart. In fact, sometimes some people didn't want to scheme deliberately but because they had no choice but to scheme. In the situation they were facing, there were too many things they had to consider. If they didn't scheme, they wouldn't be able to balance all aspects and obtain greater benefits, so they had no choice but to scheme. Scheming was always exhausting and many times, it was strenuous and unrewarding. However, if this person's nature wasn't sinister to the extreme, then he would always throw away his mask of hypocrisy in some unintentional details. The human race was like this, the dragon race was like this, and Ao Jia was like this. This Xiao also thanks Great Elder. Xiao Hua knew that many words of thanks didn't need to be said, as long as they understood each other's hearts, it was enough, so he only said a word of thanks. Ao Jia didn't mention this matter again but said solemnly, according to this old man's heavenly dragon speech technique, these dragons might have come from the Thousand Demons' Sacred Realm's great holy palace. Of course, this heavenly dragon speech technique is similar to the Taoist divination technique, so it might not be true. Whenever a dragon appears, could it be from Dragon Island or the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? It should be from the Thousand Demons' Sacred Realm, right? Xiao Hua replied indifferently, moreover these dragons appeared in the Thousand Demons' Sacred Realm, so the possibility of that dragon sage is also very high. Why would he make it so obvious without any reason? The human race is all like this. They think they're smart, that others wouldn't do something so obvious, and that there might be something even more secretive. Ao Jia said indifferently, perhaps he wants to use this idea to make you suspect him first, then dispel his suspicions. And this Xiao understands. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, declining to comment. Ao Jia smiled bitterly. After all, this matter involved some disputes with the dragon race. If he said it now, it would be hard to avoid suspicion from other aspects, but he couldn't not say it. Then Ao Jia said, as for the second matter, Xiao Longshi has already mentioned it. Our dragon race controls some of the transportation channels between the four seas. Xiao Longshi has also used this transportation channel before, and it's somewhat similar to the Taoist teleportation formation. These channels have been somewhat abnormal recently, and it should be related to the world-destroying mayfly. At the same time, our Dragon Island also has some abandoned transportation channels. No one knows where these channels lead to, but they might lead to outside of the realm. It could also lead to the three continents or even the Daybreak continent. Xiao Hua's heart shook as he transmitted his voice. Can these teleportation channels be repaired? No. Ao Jia shook his head and said, not to mention that the method of building the dimensional portal has been lost. Those dimensional portals have long become ruins. There is no dragon chi produced, so it is impossible to repair them. Moreover, just like what Xiao Longshi said, I have never heard of any spatial passageway in the four seas that could lead to the outside world. To deal with the insectoids, does Great Elder have any suggestions? Xiao Hua couldn't help but ask again. Ao Jia was silent for a moment. He shook his head slightly and did not say much. Then what about the third matter that Great Elder spoke of? Xiao Hua was a bit curious as to what else the Great Elder had to say to him. The third thing. Ao Jia gave Reverend Yun a look, then turned to Xiao Hua and said seriously, is related to His Excellency's Sacred Dragon and Dragon Mentor Xiao. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Reverend Yun, then at Ao Jia and asked curiously, Great Elder, can you tell me more? When Dragon Mentor Xiao came to the Dragon Island for a trial, he had been to the Dragon Chi realm and I've seen the images there. Don't tell me that His Excellency's Sacred Dragon has nothing to do with Dragon Mentor Xiao. Ha! Xiao Hua laughed, nodded and said, I knew Great Elder would have this suspicion. Have you always thought that Reverend Yun is just a clone of mine? Ao Jia smiled and answered, that's what Dragon Mentor Xiao said himself. I didn't say anything. Xiao Hua explained, it's no wonder Great Elder has such a suspicion. In fact, when we were in the sacred realm of Thousand Demons, Golden-Winged Great Rock also had the same suspicion. However, Reverend Yun's overall strength is much stronger than mine, and I'm a genuine human while Reverend Yun is a genuine dragon. That's why his suspicion was dispelled. It's not strange for a human to have a dragon clone, and it's not strange for a dragon to have a human clone. However, if this is Dragon Mentor Xiao's true form, it's impossible for His Excellency's Sacred Dragon to have such a high overall strength. And if this is His Excellency's Sacred Dragon's true form, Dragon Mentor Xiao's overall strength is also ridiculously high. Ao Jia frowned and said, this is what puzzles me and all the other elders. Great Elder, you don't have to be puzzled anymore. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I didn't say it earlier because I was afraid that the Dragon Island would covet it. But now, we're one family, so I might as well tell Great Elder everything. Reverend Yun is the same as Xiao Bai. Both of them are dragon souls I encountered by chance. They coexist with my soul in my body, and it was during the trial in the Stacked Emerald Legacy realm that both dragon souls could truly form their bodies. Because they have coexisted with my soul, it's not easy to separate them. That's why Xiao Bai was mistaken as me in the sacred realm of Thousand Demons. Coexisting with soul? Oh, I get it now. Ao Jia nodded and said, This is the only way to explain why Dragon Mentor Xiao has a dragon aura. He can also reveal his dragon bloodline in the Dragon Qi realm. Great Elder, you know everything about me. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly and said, Great Elder, you're really amazing. Hehe, the truth is like a fire in a paper. Can never be hidden. Ao Jia smiled and said, Sometimes it's good for you to reveal the truth appropriately and not let others think too much. At this point Ao Jia flew up from the dragon pillar and said, Let's go. The true dragon palace should be ready now. I'd like to invite Reverend Yun in to take a look. Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun followed Ao Jia to the front of the true dragon palace. Xiao Hua was stunned because the true dragon palace was too shabby. Although it didn't look shabby, it was far from the grandeur of the other palaces. It was like a small gatehouse of a big family of the human race. There wasn't even a plaque in the palace. At this moment, the 8 elders of the Dragon Island were already waiting in front of the true dragon palace. However, they didn't approach the palace but stayed far away in the sea. Seeing Xiao Hua and Reverend Yun flying toward them, Aoi greeted them with a smile and said, Reverend Yun, Dragon Mentor Xiao, the true dragon palace is ready. You can enter at any time. Good. Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. Amidst the vibrating light, the mirror sent out the sleeping Ao Sheng. As soon as Ao Sheng came out, the huge shadow of the dragon god rushed out. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as the shadow of the dragon god appeared, the entire dragon island reacted. Countless dragon auras and dragon breaths rushed up like 10,000 dragons prostrating themselves before them. The layers of dragon formations also emerged and rippled in the sea where the dragon island was located. Roar. What was special was that a strange dragon roar suddenly came out from the pitch-black true dragon palace. After that, tiny whirlpools began to appear in the sea around the true dragon palace. As expected. Seeing the reaction of the true dragon palace, Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and thought coldly to himself, Jianghu reincarnated on the Dawn Rain continent, and Ao Xing reincarnated on the Dragon Island. This is definitely not a coincidence. These 4 continents are definitely not simple. Otherwise, the so-called immortal realm would not have spent so much effort to separate the 4 continents. And this true dragon palace might really be the secret move of the dragon god. Hehe, however, with fellow Taoist Yun accompanying Ao Xing today, even if the dragon god has some tricks up his sleeve, he won't be able to escape from his hands. The dragon roar of the true dragon palace rang out, and Ao Xing suddenly woke up from his deep sleep. He looked around in bewilderment and suddenly said with joy, Grand Elder? Am I back? Am I still dreaming? No. Ao Jia said kindly, Dragon Master Xiao has sent you back. Now, I want you to accompany Reverend Yun to the True Dragon Palace. The True Dragon Palace? Ao Xing glanced at the palace and asked curiously, How can I enter the True Dragon Palace? But, speaking of this, Ao Xing muttered strangely, But I still hear a dragon calling me from inside. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Reverend Yun's voice also sounded in Xiao Hua's mind, I also feel that there is a summoning from inside. Yes, you have experienced the incident in the ruins. It must be related to the dragon god. You should go and take a look. Xiao Hua replied in his mind, No matter what. You must act according to the situation. If you can't handle it, just ask I directly. Of course, you must also protect Ao Xing. Alright. Reverend Yun answered in his mind, then opened his mouth and spat out the dragon jade. How do I use this dragon jade? Cough. 6th elder coughed and said awkwardly, Just give it to the Grand Elder. Hehe. Xiao Hua said sarcastically, So the token of the true dragon palace on Dragon Island can be used in this way. This is the first time I've heard of it. So Ao Xing, a little clan elder of the dragon clan, also has something that can replace the bloodline of the 11th clan? Hehe. Ao Jia was still the thick-skinned one. His expression did not change at all as he answered, Everything is possible. Well, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Xiao Hua was completely convinced by the cunning and shamelessness of the dragon clan. He waved his hand helplessly and said, Let's go. Reverend Yun waved his hand and sent the dragon jade to the Grand Elder, while he himself rushed into the true dragon palace. The group of elders stared at Reverend Yun. When they saw Reverend Yun's dragon body rushing into the palace, a complicated expression appeared in their eyes. Although Ao Xing was a little sleepy, he was now full of energy. He wanted to follow Reverend Yun into the true dragon palace, but unfortunately when his body touched the palace, an inexplicable dragon rune mixed with complicated energy waves blocked his way, preventing him from entering. But strangely, the dragon shadow around Ao Sheng's body, which was still swaying, disappeared into the palace without being blocked. Chapter 4705. Why can't I go in? Ao Sheng cried out in bewilderment. Ao Jia was taken aback as well. He hurriedly moved his body, trying to get closer. However, before he could do so, the same dragon marks and ripples appeared on the true dragon palace, blocking him outside. He was not even as close as Ao Sheng. This is strange. Xiao Hua was surprised as well, as he had lost the connection with Reverend Yun as soon as he entered the true dragon palace. Now, when he saw Ao Sheng could not enter the palace as well, he felt a little embarrassed. So he urged his body to get closer to the palace. However, Xiao Hua was still weaker than Ao Jia. Just as he moved his body, the dragon marks and ripples appeared, blocking him in the sea. Since Ao Jia could not enter the palace, Aoe and the other elders did not go any closer. They just stood aside and watched quietly. But when Ao Jia saw that Xiao Hua could not get close to the true dragon palace, his suspicion that Xiao Hua was Reverend Yun's clone had mostly faded away. Why don't you come in? Reverend Yun poked his head out of the palace and grabbed Ao Sheng's neck with his dragon claw, trying to drag him in. Unfortunately, even with Reverend Yun's help, Ao Sheng's dragon body could only stick to the door of the true dragon palace. He could not enter. Reverend Yun, please go in first. Ao Jia said helplessly. This true dragon palace is only there to block the dragon marks and ripples of the real true dragon palace. The real? You don't have to say that, Grand Elder. Reverend Yun answered indifferently. I have already seen the true dragon palace in the center of the palace. That's good. Ao Jia smiled and said, Reverend Yun, please go in and have a look. We have never been in this true dragon palace before. Upon hearing that, Reverend Yun loosened his dragon claw and turned to enter the palace. Just as Ao Jia had said, the entire true dragon palace was empty and devoid of any decorations. There was only a powerful light spot in the center of the palace, which looked like the center of the entire world. As soon as Reverend Yun set foot in the palace, he saw the light spot at first glance. Before his vision or will could fall on it, a magnificent image of a dragon immediately emerged in his mind, sweeping away all his doubts. Controlling his dragon body, Reverend Yun flew closer to the light dot. The closer he got to the light dot, the smaller his dragon body became, and the larger the light dot became. In just a few breaths of time, Reverend Yun had vanished from the true dragon palace. He had transformed into a dragon that was the same size as the light dot, and had crashed into the real true dragon palace. In the eyes of Reverend Yun, the whole world was different. The huge palace became clearer, and an indescribable sense of familiarity was emanating from it. When the huge dragon scale-like door was revealed, Reverend Yun flew into it without hesitation. Rumble. A light that seemed to be able to split the heaven and earth shone out from the true dragon palace, revealing a vast dragon domain in front of Reverend Yun. Countless dragon marks transformed into the firmament, the blue sea, the starry sky, and the desert. Groups of dragons appeared everywhere like dominators, roaring and fighting, moving mountains and emptying seas and overturning nature. You're finally here. In the end, all the dragons transformed into a huge, colorful dragon image, which seemed to be transformed from the entire dragon domain, and its appearance was exactly the same as Ao Sheng and the dragon god that Reverend Yun had met in the ruins. Waves of profound knowledge in the language of dragons fell into Reverend Yun's mind, while beams of light and shadows carrying heavenly arts fell into his eyes. After an unknown period of time, 80% of the nearly boundless dragon image had disappeared, and the world in the true dragon palace had become faint and misty. At this moment, the dragon image stopped talking in the language of dragons and said in a somewhat gloomy tone, "This is what happened. Since you're here, I'm afraid my true self is most likely dead. Your overall strength is still too weak, so you only need to know the truth and you can't do anything for now. I'll seal your memory first, and when you come back from the myriad dragon's abyss and your overall strength meets the requirement, you'll be able to undo the seal yourself." After that, Reverend Yun felt his mind become heavy. Apart from the things related to the myriad dragon's abyss in the dragon domain, everything else began to become blurry. Stay here and cultivate. You're still too weak. Gradually, the dragon image disappeared and transformed back into a myriad of creatures, while a thunderous voice echoed out in the surroundings. Reverend Yun retreated from the true dragon palace and saw Ao Sheng flying in. "You can come in now?" asked Reverend Yun curiously. Ao Sheng's true cultivation base was given to him by Reverend Yun, so he respected him even more. He quickly stopped in the water and said respectfully, "Yes, master." I couldn't get close to the true dragon palace before, but as the dragon formation grew weaker, I was able to come in. Where are Jia and the others? Asked Reverend Yun vigilantly. He knew that this must be the reason why the dragon image had disappeared. Grand Elder and the others still couldn't get close, not even Xiao Longsher. Answered Sheng hastily. "MIC. Come with me." Reverend Yun nodded and led Sheng into the real true dragon palace. "You're back? Why are you so weak?" His voice was as soft as the wind. Then dragon marks filled the sky and drifted down like snowflakes, falling into Reverend Yun's dragon body and Sheng's dragon body. Rumble. As the dragon marks fell, the shadow of Sheng's dragon god emerged again. Beams of golden light, layers of dragon aura and pillars of dragon might were generated from the shadow, then they all merged into Sheng's body. Once again Sheng's eyes became hazy and he fell asleep. Reverend Yun's dragon body had also undergone some changes. But when he looked at Sheng's sleeping posture, he smiled and said, "This is your own fortune, but I've gained a lot from it. As for these benefits, I won't fight with you." After saying that, Reverend Yun stretched his dragon body and flew out from the real true dragon palace. "How is it?" asked Xiaohua and Jia at the same time when they saw Reverend Yun coming out. Reverend Yun first looked at Jia, then said, Sheng is now cultivating in the true dragon palace. I can't tell how long he has been cultivating, but if I'm not mistaken, he should have stepped into the 9th tier of Yuan Qi when he comes out from his seclusion. Thank you so much, Lord Sacred Dragon." Jia knew that Reverend Yun was helping him on purpose, so he quickly expressed his gratitude. Reverend Yun ignored Jia, then looked at Xiaohua and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, I'm sorry, but there is no information about the immortal formation in the true dragon palace." Xiaohua's face was filled with disappointment when he heard Reverend Yun's words. Then he clenched his teeth and said, "Well, fellow Taoist Yun, are you cultivating in the true dragon palace? Or do you want to follow me to Thunder Temple?" "Are you going to Thunder Temple, Master Xiao?" Jia was a little surprised. "Why don't you stay a few more days on Dragon Island? We can discuss the countermeasures again." "No." Xiaohua shook his head and said, "If I don't get rid of the mayflies, I'll feel like a fishbone is stuck in my throat. Now, I'm anxious to find out how to break the immortal formation." Thunder Temple. Jia nodded his head slightly. "You're right. The Buddhist sect of Thunder Temple is involved in reincarnation. Perhaps they might have some special records." At this moment Reverend Yun had also made up his mind. He said softly, "I will naturally follow fellow Taoist Xiao to Thunder Temple. I was able to condense my body into a dragon in the 3 continents because of the Dragon Clan of the 4 Seas. Now that the Dragon Clan of the 4 Seas is in trouble, I can't just stand by and watch." "Good." Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "Then, let's not delay any further. Let's go to Thunder Temple together." Seeing Xiaohua in such a hurry, Jia pondered for a while and said softly, "Master Xiao, Thunder Temple isn't like our Dragon Island. It's the place where all Buddhas worship the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. It's also the center of Buddhism's faith. Are already a Mahayana realm cultivator of Taoism, and have also become the Buddhist sect's Namo Merciful Mahavairakana Bodhisattva. However, once you arrive at Thunder Temple, the Mahavairakana revered Buddha would have thousands of ways to deal with you. You better send a message. And let the Mahavairakana revered Buddha and the Dipankara archaic Buddha meet at Thunder Temple." Seeing Jia's sincerity, Xiaohua nodded and smiled. "Thank you for your reminder, Grand Elder. I understand. To be honest, I've offended the Buddhism sect in Longevity Town. Not only did I steal the limelight of the sutra praying in Nirvana, I even messed up the immortal Buddha ceremony. If it weren't for the 4 great families plotting against the immortal emperor, I wouldn't have been able to escape. Now that I'm heading to Thunder Temple, I'm a little nervous. However, for the sake of the billions of lives in the 3 continents, I have no choice but to go." "How brave, how virtuous, how magnificent." Jia praised 3 times and led the other 8 elders of the Dragon Hall to send Xiaohua out of the Dragon Island to the teleportation passage. When the dragon generals guarding the teleportation passage saw the 9 elders of the Dragon Hall gathered, they were all shocked and hurriedly activated the teleportation passage. Jia ordered, "Activate the teleportation passage to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace and inform the Southern Sea Dragon Palace that Dragon Teacher Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him. Grand Elder, I'll go to the Northern Sea Dragon Palace first." Jia was slightly stunned and asked curiously, "Could it be that Dragon Teacher Xiao wants to go to the Great Sage Hall first?" "That's right. Xiaohua smiled and nodded. Didn't Grand Elder already remind me? Now that I'm on good terms with the Golden Winged Rock, he can't stand the way the Thunder Temple does things the most. I'll go and greet him first. Oh, right, if the Dragon Island has any method to directly send a message to the Great Sage Hall, there's no harm in letting the Golden Winged Rock and the heaven-defying Lightning Phoenix make a trip to Jianghu. After all, it'll take me a lot of time to travel from the Northern Sea Dragon Palace to the Great Sage Hall. Rest assured Dragon Teacher Xiao. Our Dragon Hall does have a special communication passage to the Great Sage Hall. I'll definitely inform the two great sages of Dragon Teacher Xiao's whereabouts. Ao Jia nodded and ordered the Dragon Generals to activate the teleportation passage again. Seeing that Xiaohua and Reverend Yun were sent away by the teleportation passage, Ao Jia's expression changed. He looked at Aoe and the other elders and ordered, "Let's hurry back to the Dragon Hall and discuss how to avoid this disaster. We were too relaxed about this apocalyptic warning. In my opinion, Xiaohua's trip will be a fruitless one. The war between the 3 rivers and 4 seas, the 3 continents and the world-destroying ephemera, is absolutely unavoidable." Chapter 4706. Understood. When Aoe and the others saw how nervous Ao Jia was, they knew it was not a trivial matter. Their hearts skipped a beat, and they answered at the same time before flying back to Longjiang. Putting aside the fact that the dragon race had begun to avoid the disaster, Xiaohua had brought Reverend Yun through the teleportation tunnel and arrived at the teleportation formation in North Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Go, the master of North Sea Dragon Palace, had been waiting in the teleportation hall after receiving the message from the Dragon Palace. Unfortunately, Xiaohua and Reverend Yun were in a hurry, and after exchanging a few pleasantries with him, they left for Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Ao Go wanted to ask about the Dragon Palace, but when he saw Xiaohua frowning, he knew he had something important to tell him, so he dared not ask. After flying out of the Dragon Palace, Xiaohua asked impatiently in his mind, "Fellow Taoist Yun, what exactly happened in the True Dragon Palace?" What else could it be? As you have expected, the True Dragon Palace is a backup plan left behind by His Majesty Dragon God, and it was prepared for his reincarnation. Reverend Yun explained, perhaps His Majesty Dragon God had left it here on Dragon Island before he went to ruins. I remembered clearly what it was at that time, but His Majesty Dragon God said I was too weak to know too much now, so he sealed my memory. Only the location of Myriad Dragon's Abyss in the Dragon Realm and the cultivation method were left behind. Perhaps I will only be able to find out the truth after I ascend to Dragon Realm. Damn it. Xiaohua slapped his thigh and cried out, these 4 continents are definitely not ordinary realms. The reincarnation of Nanwu Methreya, His Majesty Dragon God, and Ananda. All these almighty experts were reincarnated into this realm. What's more, this realm is divided by the Immortal Realm, Buddha Realm, and Demon League. We still don't know if it is an ordinary realm or not. Reverend Yun said with a wry smile, all we know is that if we don't find a way to kill the mayflies and break the dividing immortal formation, the 3 continents will be wiped out. The annihilation this time is completely different from the annihilation in ruins. You're right. Xiaohua was also very worried. The ruins are the fragments of the desolate age. Although there are many living beings inside, it's not even 1 in 10 million of the living beings in the 3 continents. Moreover, whether it's the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sects, or the demon race, the 3 continents all have a long history. This is the origin of the ancient times. The Confucian cultivators have a term called civilization. Since the beginning of the human race, this civilization has lasted for countless years. The noble spirit that has settled in the world is the glory of this civilization. If the red mayfly extinguishes the fire of light, who knows how many years it will take to reignite it? The most important thing is, Taoist Yun glanced at Xiaohua and said, if we don't kill the world destruction mayfly, we won't be able to survive. Not bad. Xiaohua smiled coldly, don't look at how calm Ao Jia is in front of us. Maybe after we leave, he will immediately mobilize all the dragons and prepare to defend Dragon Island. Ao Jia is too cunning. I don't like it, said Reverend Yun coolly, while in his mind, he told Xiaohua what he had gained in the True Dragon Palace. He's really generous. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the sacred realm of 1,000 demons in the distance, which looked like monsters crawling on the ground, and said, using the entire world as a springboard and the reincarnation cycle as a path, the cultivators who cultivate arduously in order to ascend and break free from the constraints of the world are really just ants and mayflies in the eyes of these almighty experts. Mayflies? Reverend Yun laughed. That depends on where the mayflies are from. If the mayflies from the upper realm were to come to the 4 great continents, they would be extraordinary existences. Since there are no records of immortal arrays on Dragon Island, we can only rely on the Thunder Temple. Xiao Hua moved like lightning and Reverend Yun followed closely behind. Xiao Hua said inwardly, if there are records of immortal arrays in the Great Holy Palace, Feng Wu should have discovered it when he was studying the ancient books in the Great Holy Palace. It seems. Reverend Yun nodded. Fellow Taoist, you don't think the Great Holy Palace is important. Today you're just unwilling to give up. So you came to ask again. That's right. The Great Holy Palace is different from other places. Xiao Hua explained. Feng Wu is now the first great saint of the Great Holy Palace, the nominal ruler of the sacred realm of 1,000 demons. Of course, his foundation is still shallow, so he can't extend his reach to every corner of the sacred realm of 1,000 demons. However, he has more than enough control over the Great Holy Palace. So, if the Great Holy Palace has any information about immortal arrays, he will definitely inform I at the first possible moment. Reverend Yun pondered for a while, then said, the things left behind by Supreme Dragon God are a little strange. I will meditate and study them first. You go and meet Feng Wu yourself. Alright. Xiao Hua agreed. Today's matter is to break the immortal arrays. Fellow Taoist, you can study them first. Who knows, you might find some secrets about immortal arrays. Fellow Taoist, you think too much. Reverend Yun smiled, then entered the space in a flash. Xiao Hua flew for a while, then took out the Kunlun mirror and brought out Princess Xixia and the Pegasus flying chariot. Both of them then sat on the flying chariot hand in hand. Although Princess Xixia did not ask much about Dragon Island, Xiao Hua still gave her a rough explanation. In the end, he said with some disappointment, there are no records of immortal arrays on Dragon Island. Then, I can only focus on the Great Holy Palace and Thunder Temple. Princess Xixia pondered for a while, then nodded and said, if what you said is true, then the immortal arrays were set up by Tao sect, Buddhism sect, and Demon clan. I'm afraid we can only find traces of them from Thunder Temple, Great Holy Palace, and Dragon Island. As for the Immortal Palace, as far as I know, there has never been any records of this. Definitely not. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Even the incarnations of the Masters of Supreme Pure Palace and Jade Pure Palace didn't know that Dawn Rain Continent was one of the 4 great continents. How could the Immortal Palace have any records of this? Yi Xiao Hua. Princess Xixia pursed her lips and said with a smile, I'm afraid you're afraid of His Majesty's scheme, so you subconsciously want to avoid him? Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and said with a bitter smile, you're right. When facing His Majesty I feel like a child. When His Majesty said that sentence, I accidentally didn't hear it clearly and didn't understand it, so I might have fallen into his scheme. So, unless I have no other choice, I definitely don't want to see him. But for me, Princess Xixia slightly leaned to the side and leaned her head on Xiao Hua's shoulder. She murmured, you threatened His Majesty several times and even fought your way to the southern heavenly gate and sent your troops to the end of the world. I'm really satisfied. Xiao Hua wanted to say something, but when he thought about how he probably wouldn't be able to return to Dawn Rain Continent, and how he would most likely have to join hands with Princess Xixia to fight against the world-destroying ephemera in the future, he closed his mouth and lightly embraced Princess Xixia's slender waist with his right hand. Just like that, they sat on the flying carriage and flew towards Bai Qingyu. Without needing to fly close to Bai Qingyu, Xiao Hua already released his divine sense. Boom boom. 2 pillars of starlight and moonlight soared into the sky, and a huge halo of light flew out. The golden-winged great rock and the heaven-defying thunder phoenix had already received the news and came over from Bai Qingyu. Xiao Hua kept the flying carriage and held Princess Xixia's hand. He stopped in midair and watched the 2 great sages of the Great Sage Hall transform into their human forms and land. The golden-winged great rock didn't wait for them to land and shouted, Dragon Master Xiao, what's the matter with you? Could it be that you don't trust me? You even came from afar to supervise me? When Xiao Hua heard that, he knew that Ao Jia didn't explain the reason why he went to Dragon Island. He hurriedly bowed and said, Rock Sage, you're overthinking. Today I came to see Rock Sage and Phoenix Sage because I have an extremely important matter to ask. Oh? Fellow Taoist, please speak. Feng Wu didn't fly close, but Xiao Hua had already transmitted his voice in his mind. However, he still pretended that he didn't know and asked curiously. Xiao Hua told him his thoughts. The golden-winged great rock was stunned. He shouted in surprise, Dragon Master Xiao, what did you say? The abyss of the West Sea. There's a celestial world formation that separates the 4 great continents? This is absolutely impossible. What's impossible? Xiaohua asked thoughtfully. The golden-winged great rock smiled and said, "Tens of thousands of years ago, a flood dragon in the East Sea offended me. I chased after him. That day the 2 of us kept flying towards the west of the West Sea. I don't know how long we flew. I forced him to fly straight and couldn't turn back. In the end he died of exhaustion. If there was a celestial formation like Dragon Master Xiao said, I would have encountered it back then." Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, "Rock Sage, you don't know how powerful that celestial formation is. This celestial formation has the Buddha sect's Great Meru formation. The closer you get to this Buddha formation, the smaller your body becomes. It's like you're at the edge of the world. You'll never be able to get close to or come into contact with the Buddha formation." The golden-winged great rock came to a realization and said in shock, "If that's the case, how can we break the formation?" "That's right. That's why we have to find the formation core of this celestial formation or its flaw. Only then can we break the formation." Xiaohua's gaze swept across the golden-winged great rock in Fengwu. "Have you seen any records of this in the Great Sage Hall?" "No." The golden-winged great rock shook his head. "I'm not interested in this. I've never seen it before." "I've never seen it before either." Fengwu also shook his head resolutely. "Forget it." Xiaohua had already known from Fengwu that he was destined to fail this time. He waved his hand and said, "I'll go take a look at the Lane Temple first. Great sages, return to the Great Sage Hall and look around carefully." "Okay, we understand." The golden-winged great rock and Fengwu both agreed and sent Xiaohua away. Xiaohua naturally didn't come to Bai Qingyu just to ask about the Great Sage Hall. He also wanted to borrow the transportation formation of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. After all, the transportation formation of the Western Paradise was near the Great Snow Mountain. It was much more convenient than the transportation passage of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. Chapter 4707. Seeing Xiaohua and Princess Zixia leaving using the teleportation array, Fengwu looked at the sky in the distance and said in a low voice, "Peng Sage, Dragon Teacher Xiao is right. If we don't get rid of those strange insects, they might really block the passage to the Shattered Void. At that time, the Demon Alliance's Star-Moon passage won't arrive. Even if we can surpass the laws of heaven and earth of the 3 continents. No, the laws of heaven and earth might change at that time. We can't shatter the starry sky. The situation is urgent." The Golden Rock's expression was also serious. "We were careless earlier. It's not too late to mend the pen after the sheep are lost." Fengwu gritted his teeth. "This sage will take a look at the depths of the Great Sage Hall. I'll leave the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm to Rock Sage and the other great sages." "The depths of the Great Sage Hall?" The Golden Rock was shocked. That's the shattered starry sky. This sage used bravado to force his way in and was almost killed by the cracks in the starry sky. "Today is a special day." Fengwu smiled. "If we don't take risks, how can we gain anything? This matter can't be solved by taking risks." The Golden Rock shook his head. "This sage feels that you should discuss with Xiao Longsher and prepare a foolproof plan. There's no need to let him know," Fengwu said firmly. "If he knows that this sage is going to enter the depths of the Great Sage Hall, he'll definitely stop me. The sage knows him too well." Sigh. The Golden Rock sighed. "This sage is really envious of Xiao Longsher. He's really lucky to have such a close friend like you." "Ah." Fengwu spread his wings and the pillar of starlight fell. In a flash, his figure had already crossed 1,000 miles. His forthright voice came from afar. "Rock Sage, you and I don't know each other without fighting. Aren't we friends who have gone through life and death together? Why are you envious of Xiao Longsher?" "Haha, not bad, not bad." The Golden Rock also spread his wings and followed Fengwu back to the Great Sage Hall. Princess Zixia naturally didn't know that Xiaohua had set up teleportation formations in both the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and the Pure Land of Bliss. When she followed Xiaohua out of the teleportation formation in the Pure Land of Bliss, she looked left and right. After a while she cried out in surprise, "Xiaohua, is this the Great Snow Mountain?" "That's right." Xiaohua raised his hand and pointed at the distant snowy mountain. "That's the snowy mountain where you and I first met. However, the Great Snow Mountain has already become Namo Maitreya Buddha's place of enlightenment. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to go there." "I understand." Princess Zixia blinked her eyes and said with a smile, "You wanted to go to the Thunder Temple, but you were afraid that you would fall into Mahavairocana's trap." That's why you dragged Namo Maitreya Buddha with you. However, Namo Maitreya Buddha had already betrayed Lane Temple. How could he return to Lane Temple? Also, you're being too careful. The Vairocana world venerable is the most trustworthy of all the supreme beings in the 3 continents. What's there to believe? Xiao Hua cursed inwardly, putting aside the matter of Zhen Kong, just the matter of suppressing the Grand Mist Ancestors' yin-yang diagram in the West Sea's eye and using the Buddha's decree to suppress the West Sea Fire Dragon's soul proves that the Vairocana world venerable is not a simple Buddha Lord. However, Xiao Hua did not say it out loud. He smiled and said, no matter what, this Xiao is still the Buddhist sect's Namo Mahavairocana Bodhisattva. Seeing that the Lane Temple and Exquisite Temple are not on good terms, this Xiao feels uncomfortable in his heart. Now that the apocalyptic omen has appeared, the Buddhist sect is also a powerful force to resist the world-exterminating mayfly. If the Lane Temple and Exquisite Temple become one, they will be able to exterminate the world-exterminating mayfly more effectively. If the two continue to be at odds, the world-exterminating mayfly will attack separately. This Xiao wants to do a good deed this time. Princess Zixia shook her head. This matter is simple, but it's extremely difficult to do it. This is the difference in the Buddhist sect's teachings. It's not something that can be solved with a few words. Where there's a will, there's a way. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror and said with a smile, this Xiao doesn't know anything else, but what I know now is that my princess should avoid it for a while. Princess Zixia's face slightly reddened. She curled her lips and glared at Xiao Hua, rebuking him. Who is your princess? His Majesty hasn't. That's true. Xiao Hua looked up at the sky and shouted, Master of the Wuxia Temple, why aren't you setting up the array? After setting up the 9 provinces' great array, this Xiao can marry my princess in a proper way. Okay, don't make a fuss about nothing. Although she knew that no one could hear them, Princess Zixia still stopped him with a burning face. Xiao Hua smiled and shook the Kunlun mirror, putting Princess Zixia into the space. He looked in the direction of the snowy mountain and flew over. This was already the 3rd time Xiao Hua came to Exquisite Temple. At this time, Exquisite Temple was completely different from before. Not to mention that many Buddhist halls had been built around the snowy mountain, just the Exquisite Temple, which had been expanded more than 10 times, was flourishing with incense, which was hard for Xiao Hua to imagine. Confucian cultivators have a saying, the mountain is not high, the water is not deep, the dragon is spiritual. It is indeed so. Xiao Hua pondered, although it is the same Exquisite Temple where the inheritance of Tantra is, there was no incense before, only an old monk was guarding this place. But today Namo Maitreya has set up a dojo here. Thousands of people are not afraid of the towering snowy mountain, not afraid of the remoteness of Exquisite Temple. They come from all over the Pure Land to worship. There is no other reason but to solidify the name. Xiao Hua's gaze moved away from the unfamiliar Exquisite Temple and looked up at the sky. He saw that there were thousands of Buddhist auras everywhere, and clusters of Buddhist auras condensed into the shape of lotus platforms. A faint sound of Buddhist chants and the sound of wooden fish came from the void. This sound passed through the lotus platforms condensed by Buddhist auras, and the Buddhist statues of Namo Maitreya with one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the ground appeared from time to time. Namo Maitreya. Xiao Hua chanted Buddhist chants, and lightning surged around his body as he rushed towards the overflowing Buddhist auras. Fortunately, there was no need for Xiao Hua to use his divine ability to find the location of Namo Maitreya's dojo. A loud Buddhist chant came from the Buddhist auras. Namo Maitreya Guanyin Bodhisattva, how have you been? Xiao Hua's figure stopped, and with a smile on his face, he looked towards the Buddhist auras. He saw that the Buddhist auras were as dense as milk. The dazzling light was dazzling, but it was not ostentatious as it flickered in the sky. Numerous Buddhist lotuses were born out of thin air, numerous heavenly dragons danced with the wind, and the Sanskrit chants came from the void. From the tear in the void, Namo Maitreya's dojo, Samantabhadra, followed behind him. Greetings to Namo Maitreya's dojo. Xiao Hua put his palms together. Namo Maitreya. Namo Maitreya's dojo chanted Buddhist chants. Xiao Tanyue, you are too polite. Hearing Namo Maitreya's dojo calling Xiao Hua Tanyue, Samantabhadra, who was at the side, frowned for no reason. He understood that Xiao Hua and Namo Maitreya's dojo were old acquaintances, and now that Shaolin Long Temple was fighting against Lane Temple as an equal, no matter in terms of Buddhist preaching and support, Shaolin Long Temple was at a disadvantage. Now Xiao Hua could be considered as the #1 human cultivator, so it was fine if Namo Maitreya's dojo did not rope him in, but there was no reason to push Xiao Hua away. Xiaohua was also stunned, and looked at Namo Mithraya's dojo with some confusion, quietly waiting for him to explain. Namo Mithraya's dojo did not change and said indifferently, "Xiao Tanyue, you and I are old acquaintances. Before I achieved Buddhist enlightenment, I received a lot of help from you, this friendship. I won't go into detail. However, ever since I set up the dojo in Snowy Mountain, I haven't seen Tanyue come to visit, so I don't understand. Furthermore, the things that Tanyu is hiding from this seat are a little too many. This seat has never thought that Tanyu would actually be able to attain my Buddhist sect's Namo Great Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Tanyua's performance in Longevity Town was not only a mockery to my Buddhist sect, but also a mockery to me." Ah! Xiaohua suddenly realized, and said with a smile, "So that's the case. No wonder Namo Mithraya treated me like a stranger at the Jade Pool meeting, and did not even congratulate me. Actually, it's not that I intend to conceal it, but I've never thought of obtaining the Buddha fruit of the Buddhist sect. After all, I'm a Tao cultivator, why would I achieve Buddhist enlightenment? As for Longevity Town, that's my secret. I don't think it's necessary to tell Namo Mithraya. Besides, Namo Mithraya, don't you also have secrets that you didn't tell me? I never thought that the little monk at that time could achieve Namo Mithraya's Buddhist enlightenment." Namo Mithraya pondered for a moment, then put his palms together and said, "Namo Mithraya, I wonder what identity Tanyue is using to come to my exquisite temple today?" "Namo Mithraya," Xiaohua said respectfully, "stepping into the holy land of Buddhism, I'm naturally using the identity of Guanyin Bodhisattva." "Namo Mithraya." A smile appeared on Namo Mithraya's face and he said, "I wonder if Guanyin came to my exquisite temple to discuss the essence of Buddhism with me? Or is there something else?" Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Namo Mithraya is wrong. Disciples' Buddhist enlightenment came suddenly, and disciples' Buddhist cultivation is too shallow. How could I discuss the essence of Buddhism with Namo Mithraya? Disciple came here to discuss with Namo Mithraya about the other party's world-destroying mayfly." "World-destroying mayfly? Is that the strange insect we encountered at the Jade Pool meeting?" Namo Mithraya said with a smile. "That day, whether it was my exquisite temple or Layin temple, didn't we already agree to join hands to resist the strange insect, and we also decided on a countermeasure? Could it be that there's still something unfinished? The world-destroying mayfly is far more powerful than we thought." Xiaohua stopped smiling and said solemnly, "This insect came from the upper realm." "The upper realm?" Without waiting for Namo Mithraya to speak, Namo Mithraya Samantabhadra also cried out involuntarily, but in an instant, he put his palms together and said, Namo Mithraya, senior brother, disciple was rude." Chapter 4708. Namo Mithraya Buddha. Xiaohua returned the greeting, "Junior apprentice brother is too polite. When I heard this news I was even more shocked than you. Also, the higher realm I mentioned might be above the immortal realm." The Mithraya Buddha of the world and Namo Mithraya Samantabhadra Bodhisattva sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at each other with shock in their eyes. "So," Xiaohua explained, "World Lord, after I received the news, I immediately rushed to the Dragon Island and the Great Sage Hall to find a way to exterminate the mayflies. Unfortunately, there were no results at the two demon race and dragon race sacred grounds. Now, I've come to the small exquisite temple to see if there are any good methods." The Mithraya Buddha of the world smiled bitterly. "Guanyin Venerable, you overestimate the small exquisite temple. I've just established my Tao arena in the small exquisite temple. If I preach Buddhism and fight against the mayflies, I might be able to help. If I find a way to exterminate the mayflies from Buddhism's legacies." Speaking till here, the Mithraya Buddha of the world suddenly realized. He raised his hand and pointed at Xiaohua, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "Guanyin Venerable, you're starting to play tricks with me now? Do you want to go to the Thundersound Temple but are afraid that the Mahavairakana Buddha of the world and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha of the world will harm you? Is that why you came to the small exquisite temple to drag me here?" No. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand saying, "Although I've attained enlightenment, I don't know much about Buddhism's secrets. Therefore, I came to the small exquisite temple with the intention of seeking guidance. As for the Thundersound Temple, to be honest, I've offended the Dipankara Archaic Buddha of the world in the Longevity Town. I'm really afraid of going to the Thundersound Temple. Therefore, if the small exquisite temple doesn't have a way to exterminate the world-exterminating mayflies, I'm also thinking of asking the Mithraya Buddha of the world-exterminating mayflies for help." Namo Mithraya Buddha. The Mithraya Buddha of the world Lord chanted, Guanyin Venerable's heart cares for the billions of life forms of the three great continents. And doesn't fear personal danger. Lord Guanyin Buddha of the three rivers, 4 seas and 3 seas and 3 continents. It's no wonder that Lord Guanyin Bodhisattva could attain enlightenment as a Buddha of the three Buddha. Namo Maitreya. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Daxing also put his palms together and said, Senior brother, the mercy in your heart is great. This disciple cannot compare to you. Xiaohua also didn't waste any time and said with a smile, if Shaolin Long Temple doesn't have a method to exterminate insects, then will the revered one of the world follow me to Lane Temple now? Of course. Maitreya Buddha also knew the urgency of the matter, so he agreed and said to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, I'll accompany Guanyin Venerable to Lane Temple. You explain the power of the world-destroying strange insect to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the temple. Discuss the countermeasures and wait for me to return. Revered one of the world. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was shocked and reminded him, Lane Temple is no longer a good place. Revered one of the world should consider carefully before making a decision. Maitreya Buddha of the world said proudly, when I was able to come out of the Lane Temple, I can enter the Lane Temple again today. Also, with Guanyin Venerable by our side, do you think the two of us can't defeat the Mahavairakana Revered One and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha of the world? Yes, disciple understands. Please be careful, revered one of the world and senior apprentice brother. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva pressed his palms together. Disciple respectfully awaits the revered one and senior apprentice brother's safe return. Namantabhadra Buddha. Xiaohua also pressed his palms together. Junior apprentice brother, farewell. After Xiaohua finished speaking, Maitreya Buddha of the world raised his hand and pointed at the radiance behind his head. A ray of Buddha light gushed out from the radiance and surged into the void. The void in front of Xiaohua was torn apart layer by layer. As the void overlapped, a majestic Lane temple overflowing with Buddha light vaguely appeared in the void. Just as the Buddha light entered the Lane temple, the void immediately collapsed and everything disappeared. A teleportation passage condensed by Buddha light appeared beneath Maitreya Buddha of the world and Xiaohua's feet. Namantabhadra Buddha, Guanyin Venerable, please. Maitreya Buddha of the world looked at the golden runes condensed by Buddha light flowing around the passage like tadpoles. He chanted Buddha's name and raised his hand to signal Xiaohua. Aha, I want the revered one's divine ability. Xiaohua smiled. He stepped on the teleportation passage and said, although disciple has already attained the fruit, this Buddha fruit is neither fish nor fowl. I actually didn't go to the Lane Temple's Buddha light to receive me. That's easy. Maitreya Buddha of the world also stepped on the teleportation passage and smiled. You haven't condensed a Buddha body, so of course, you don't have the Lane Temple's symbol. Once you reach the Lane Temple, you only need to condense a Buddha body in the lotus washing pond. Then you can freely come and go to the Lane Temple. Xiaohua and Maitreya Buddha of the world both stepped on the teleportation passage. Woo-woo. The strange sound of wind whistling came from the space around the passage. After the two figures disappeared into the passage also disappeared into the void. Samantabhadra's body flashed with Buddha light. He tore through the void and returned to the Shaoluo Temple's dojo. Xiaohua followed Maitreya Buddha of the world through the void on the Rainbow Bridge. He saw the source of the Buddha light. There were many wonderful sounds and Sanskrit chants. In the distance, there seemed to be an incomparably huge temple emitting a Buddha light that was more vast than the sea. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. He knew. This should be the most mysterious Lane temple in the 3 continents. At the same time, in the Thunder Temple, the Mahavairakana revered Buddha was explaining the Dharma to the Golden Lotus. However, he suddenly stopped and closed his eyes. The bright side of the Buddha's light was benevolent, while the side of the Buddha's light that was withered was indescribably ferocious. Amitabha. When Maitreya Buddha of the world opened his eyes again, he looked outside the Lane temple and chanted, "They finally came." World Lord. Namantabhadra Manjushri asked curiously, "They? Who are they?" "They are naturally them." Maitreya Buddha of the world didn't explain. He should have come long ago. Namantabhadra Manjushri was puzzled. He didn't understand why Maitreya Buddha of the world first said they, then he. However, after a while he had an idea. He smiled and said, "Namantabhadra, I understand now. Samantabhadra has returned. Open the door and welcome Maitreya Buddha of the world and Guanyin Banti." The Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world still looked miserable as he spoke. Namantabhadra Samantabhadra, Namantabhadra Samantabhadra. As thousands of Buddhas chanted, the guardian heavenly king opened the door of the Lain temple. Maitreya Buddha of the world and Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world walked in front, with the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas following behind them. The end of the rainbow bridge opened by Maitreya Buddha of the world was the same as before. It was right below the stairs of the Lain temple. When Xiaohua and Maitreya Buddha of the world landed on the stairs of the Lain temple, the door of the Lain temple opened. The Thunderclap temple's doors opened at this moment. Xiaohua only saw layers upon layers of Buddhist phenomena passing by. Thousands of golden runes interweaved together, forming a world resembling a spiderweb. When his eyes lit up, a familiar voice resounded, Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha welcomes the return of Guanyin Bodhisattva. Xiaohua naturally knew that this was the Dipankara archaic Buddha's voice. When he raised his head, he saw a Mahavira hall in front of him. In front of the hall, 2 Buddha lords were already standing. Behind the 2 Buddha lords, the Manjushri Bodhisattva of Namo wisdom stood alone. Even more Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Arhats stood behind the Manjushri Bodhisattva with their palms pressed together. Seeing this, Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He put his palms together and said, Disciple greets the 2 venerables of the world. Namo Daji Manjushri didn't know what the others were thinking. However, after hearing Xiaohua calling himself a disciple, Namo Daji Manjushri calmed down and a smile appeared on his face. Namo Amitba, welcome back to Lain Temple, senior brother. Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled. Namo Amitba, welcome back Namo Merciful Manjushri Bodhisattva of world. The group of Buddhas chanted. Greetings, senior brothers. Xiaohua smiled and returned the greeting. A peaceful atmosphere appeared in front of the Lain Temple. Dang dang dang. The bell rang 9 times in a row. Tens of thousands of Buddha lights rolled into the void like waves. The entire Nirvana world was filled with Buddha lights. The Mahavairākana revered Buddha chanted, Namo Merciful Manjushri Bodhisattva of world is back. Amitba Buddha, Amitba Buddha, Amitba Buddha. Countless Buddhist chants sounded from all over the pure land of ultimate bliss and fell into the void. Then countless strands of faith power appeared out of thin air and entered Xiaohua's body. Manjushri Bodhisattva, please enter the lotus cleansing pond to sculpt your body. Only in my Buddhist sect's hall can you leave your Buddha golden body. The Mahavairākana revered Buddha was afraid that Xiaohua didn't understand, so he explained a bit more. He raised his hand and pointed at Xiaohua's feet. Looking at Xiaohua's feet again, that boundless pool of jade water was revealed. This jade water was calm, and countless golden inscriptions were hidden in the jade water. Xiaohua's gaze swept over. It seemed that every drop of jade water revealed a Buddha kingdom. Moreover, this Buddha kingdom was born where Xiaohua's gaze fell, and then disappeared when Xiaohua's gaze left. Above the jade water, countless Buddha lotuses covered the sky and the sun. Moreover, these Buddha lotuses bloomed with 9 colors. This is a bit strange. It clearly looks like there are countless Buddha lotuses, but how come there are only 81 of them? Xiaohua was a bit puzzled. He raised his head and looked at the Mahavairākana revered Buddha. The Mahavairākana revered Buddha smiled and said, Namo Mahavairākana revered Buddha, Manjushri Bodhisattva, as long as my Buddhist sect's Bodhisattva achieves fruition, it means severing the past. The previous mortal body will turn into nothingness here. Only the golden body condensed in the lotus cleansing pond is the true golden body. Since the revered Buddha admits that he is my Buddhist disciple, then he should. The revered Buddha's body? Chapter 4709. Speaking till here, a surprised expression appeared on the Maitreya Buddha's face. This was because Xiaohua's body didn't turn into nothingness like before, nor did it turn into a silhouette formed by dots and lines. The Maitreya Buddha stopped being surprised and looked at the Mahavairākana Buddha and the Dipankara archaic Buddha, no longer speaking. Amitba. The Dipankara archaic Buddha wasn't particularly surprised. He chanted, Guanyin Banti, you aren't a Buddhist disciple of my Buddhism sect, and you didn't condense my golden Buddha body. Therefore you can't manifest your golden Buddha body in the lotus bathing pond. However, you have already attained the Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Logically speaking, you should cleanse your past life's dust in the lotus bathing pond. Xiaohua looked at the Maitreya Buddha again. The Maitreya Buddha nodded slightly, expressing his agreement. Amitba. Xiaohua chanted and stepped into the lotus bathing pond. Gurgle. As Xiaohua's figure stepped into the lotus bathing pond, bubbles appeared on the jade water. Within the bubbles, billions of small kiliacosms were born, and they all rushed into Xiaohua's body. Rumble. The sound was like thunder. The power of faith was born from the void and poured into Xiaohua's body continuously. Moreover, the jade water within the lotus bathing pond also surged upwards and rushed into Xiaohua's body along with the power of faith. Looking at the back of Xiaohua's head, a radiance suddenly appeared. However, before the radiance could take form, it burst like a bubble in the jade water. However, the radiance didn't dissipate. Instead, it shrunk to the back of Xiaohua's head like a withered flower. Gurgle. The power of faith was still pouring into Xiaohua's body. The jade water of the lotus bathing pond was also flowing endlessly. Radiances appeared and disappeared one after another as if there was no end to them. What's going on? Seeing the water of the lotus bathing pond slowly disappearing under the 81 huge Buddha lotuses, the Mahavairakana Buddha and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha were shocked. This was something that had never happened in the Thunder Sound Temple before. On the other hand, a faint smile appeared on the Maitreya Buddha's face. No one understood Xiaohua better than him. If Xiaohua didn't use his mind to store the jade water of the lotus bathing pond into his space, he wouldn't believe it. However, the Maitreya Buddha had wrongly accused Xiaohua. Although Xiaohua did use some tricks to take the lotus pond into the space, there were also Buddhist disciples in his space. He had to prepare the lotus pond for them in advance. The Buddha's Buddha, Buddha's Buddhas, Buddha's Buddha's Buddha, Buddha's is Buddha Buddha Buddha's 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 is Buddha 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 Buddha's Buddha 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 Buddha's Buddha Buddha Buddha's Buddha 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 Buddha's Buddha into the Buddha Buddha the Buddha 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 Buddha. What was special was that every time a ray of light was annihilated and fell into the crystal-like Godhead, the brightness of the star would increase, and the size of the Godhead would increase. The Godhead's brightness and size didn't change even once, giving Xiaohua an inexplicable feeling. This feeling was even more shocking than the collapse of the heavens and the earth. Within Xiaohua's space, the heavenly Tao Xiaohua and Karma Xiaohua had already taken form and surrounded the crystal-like Godhead. Not only did they comprehend this inexplicable feeling, they also firmly blocked the Godhead's changes. After an hour, Mahavairakana revered Buddha couldn't help but cough. Ahem, Namo Amitabha. Guanyin the Venerable, if you can't condense the golden body, you can just wash away all your mortal attachments. Not to mention the Mahavairakana revered one, even the Maitreya Buddha revered one couldn't stand it anymore. He gently reminded Xiaohua in his heart to not be too ostentatious. Ahem. Xiaohua regained his senses and coughed awkwardly. He put his palms together and said, Amitabha, this disciple has too many mortal attachments. I can't wash them away in a short period of time. I've caused the revered one to worry. As he said that, Xiaohua's figure slowly flew out of the lotus washing pond. Boom. Countless Buddhist lights were emitted from the surface of Xiaohua's body and madly pierced into the void. Xiaohua's body also slowly expanded until it reached 99 feet tall. Below his feet, a 9-grade lotus platform also slowly bloomed, supporting his body. Namo Amitabha. Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The three revered one chanted Buddhist names and stepped onto the Thunder Sound Temple's Buddhist platform. Waves of Buddhist names were emitted, and countless layers of Buddhist lights rushed out like flames. However, they also stagnated in midair. Within the Thunder Sound Temple's half-withered Buddhist lights, faint Buddhist light seemed to be emitted, as if it was undergoing nirvanic rebirth. Senior apprentice brother, please. Namo Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled and gestured for Xiaohua to step onto the Buddhist platform. Xiaohua pondered for a while. The 9-grade lotus platform beneath his feet activated, and he stood within the Namo Great Compassion Great Guanyin Bodhisattva's projection. As Xiaohua's figure descended, tens of thousands of condensed Buddha's light rushed out from the Layin Temple and scattered all over the Nirvana world. Within each temple, the previously vacant position of the Nanwu Great Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva gave birth to a female Buddha with a solemn and graceful demeanor, wearing a crown on her head and a heavenly robe on her body. This Bodhisattva's Buddhist avatar had crescent-shaped brows and star-like eyes. Her jade-like face was naturally joyful, and her vermilion lips were slightly red. The pure vase of sweet dew was in its prime, and it was slanted into a poplar tree. Her appearance was completely different from Xiaohua's original appearance. Seeing the unfamiliar Bodhisattva avatar appearing, the three Buddhist lords were stunned. However, a moment later, a rare look of gratitude appeared in the Mahavairakana revered Buddha's eyes. The Dipankara Archaic Buddha revered Buddha's eyes suddenly came to a realization, while a smile appeared in the Maitreya Buddha revered Buddha's eyes. Namo Amitabha. Namo Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Namo Maitreya. The three Buddhas of the past, present, and future put their palms together and chanted Buddhist names. Layers of Buddhist light and faith were added to the Buddhist light that covered the entire Nirvana world. Many thanks to Guanyin the Venerable. The voice of Mahavairakana Revered One sounded in Xiaohua's ears. Xiaohua smiled. He knew that Mahavairakana Revered One had accepted his apology and revealed the grudge of him offending Buddhism in Longevity Town. After all, only a small number of cultivators knew the truth of Xiaohua's attainment in the immortal town, and the true believers of the three continents didn't know the specific situation. They only knew that Guanyin Bodhisattva was born in Nirvana. Now that he had chosen a female Dharma form, not only did it resemble the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva of Nanwu in the hearts of the mortals, but it had also completely separated the image of the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva from his own Taoist image. If a cultivator did not know the truth, it would be impossible to associate the Mahayana of Taoism with the four great bodhisattvas of Buddhism. In this way he could take care of the Layin Temple's reputation, and also let Mahavairakana Revered One have a decent explanation in front of the world. Of course, whether or not the golden Buddha statue of Nanwu Great Merciful Great Guanyin Bodhisattva in Longevity Town could be altered was not something that Xiaohua could control. Many people in Longevity Town had seen Xiaohua's appearance. Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, Amitabha Buddha. In the Layin Temple, thousands of Buddhas chanted, the heavenly dragons and fairies added to the fun, and the heavenly flowers scattered everywhere. After the time of half a cup of tea, the vision of Guanyin Bodhisattva sitting down gradually disappeared. Mahavairakana Revered One opened his mouth and said, "Disciples, today's preaching has ended. I have something to discuss with Guanyin the Venerable, you all can leave now." Amitabha Buddha, we will obey the Buddha's decree. The group of Buddhas bowed and slowly disappeared into the void, leaving the Layin Temple. Seeing this, Nanwu Wisdom Manjushri Bodhisattva also put his palms together and said, "Revered One, disciple will leave now. Go." Mahavairakana Revered One nodded lightly. After Manjushri Bodhisattva left, Mahavairakana Revered One's gaze landed on the faintly recovering Buddha light, and a look of realization appeared on his face. Nanwu Dipankara Archaic Buddha. Dipankara Archaic Buddha Revered One chanted and asked softly, "I thank Guanyin the Venerable." "I dare not." Xiaohua hurriedly returned the greeting. "The Longevity Town's mistake wasn't my intention. However, it was an unintentional mistake and I have to make up for it. Since I can't enter the Buddhism sect, I can only use Guanyin the Venerable's Dharma idol to replace my original form." Nanwu Maitreya Buddha. Mahavairakana Revered One chanted, "Mortals can only see the Dharma idol. You have already made up for your previous mistake." Dipankara Archaic Buddha Revered One smiled and said, "You didn't come here just to make up for your mistake, right? To be able to invite Mahavairakana Revered One here, it must be something extremely important." "That's right." Xiaohua didn't hide anything and answered, "I came to the Thunder Sound Temple because I have three extremely important matters to ask Mahavairakana Revered One." "What are the important matters?" Dipankara Archaic Buddha Revered One asked curiously. "Whatever Mahavairakana Revered One knows, I know as well. Why didn't you say it during the Jade Pool Conclave? Why did you wait until now?" "That was that day and today is today. Perhaps tomorrow, I will still have three other questions to ask Mahavairakana Revered One." Xiaohua answered with a smile. Mahavairakana Revered One retracted his gaze from the extinguished Buddha light and looked straight at Xiaohua, saying, "Venerable, before you ask me three questions, can I ask you two questions?" Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat and he forced a smile, saying, "Amitabha Revered One, please speak. However, this disciple cannot guarantee that this disciple will be able to give you a satisfactory answer to your question. If you can, that's for the best. If you can't, it's fine too." Mahavairakana Revered One answered calmly, "Who can say that they know everything in this world? Even immortal Emperor Go Chen's clear heavenly mirror and my heavenly eye connection can't see through the hidden immortal continent and the pure land of ultimate bliss." "Then Revered One, please speak." Xiaohua nodded. "My first question is..." Mahavairakana Revered One raised his hand and pointed at the half-withered Buddha light of the Thunder Sound Temple, asking, "Why did my withered Buddha light show signs of rebirth when Guanyin descended upon my Thunder Sound Temple?" "Then, let's fight. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it and give it as thanks for all your support." Chapter 47:10. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows. He didn't directly answer Mahavairakana's question, but instead asked, "Amitabha Revered One, this happens to be my first question. I want to know why you didn't have time to stop Ananda from killing Yuan Tongtian. Why was there a vision of half of the light of Buddha annihilated? If revered one can understand, maybe I can answer your question. The Mahavairakana revered one smiled and raised his finger. All sorts of profundities were born from his index finger. These profundities transformed into boundless Buddha kingdoms and heavenly flowers, which flew towards the Thunder Sound Temple. Layers of marvelous karmic light threads flew out from the gaps between the Buddha fruits and heavenly flowers, sealing off the entire space. Xiaohua was startled. He suddenly stood up with lightning flickering around his body. He said coldly, Mahavairakana, what's the meaning of this? I came here with sincerity. Could it be that you want to fight with me in the Thunder Sound Temple? You think you and Dipankara can defeat me and the Mahavairakana revered one? Amit Ba. The Dipankara revered Buddha didn't find Xiaohua's vigilance strange at all. He smiled and said, Don't worry, revered one. Didn't the Mahavairakana revered one tell you the cause of this matter before you came to the Thunder Sound Temple? What did he say? Xiaohua was stunned, and turned to look at the Mahavairakana revered one. As expected, the Mahavairakana revered one wasn't as vigilant as him. Instead he was standing there with a smile. Xiaohua was a little dazed, a little confused and a little enlightened. However, there was more surprise in his eyes. Even his figure flew away from the Mahavairakana revered one. Namo Mahavairakana revered one. The Mahavairakana revered one was laughing in his heart. However, he said with a serious expression, Don't worry, revered one Guanyin. There's something fishy about this. However, this fishy. Without the Mahavairakana revered one's permission, I can't reveal it. Because this fishy might shake the foundation of Buddhism. Xiaohua was shocked. He said anxiously, How? How is this possible? Buddhism is facing such a crisis? The Xiao. Why can't the Xiao see it? Avalokiteshvara isn't a Buddhist disciple. Of course, you wouldn't know much about our Buddhist cultivation. That's nothing. The Mahavairakana Buddha revered Buddha spoke. His withered body became even more shriveled. Let alone you, even the Dipankara archaic Buddha revered Buddha didn't know much about this. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and exclaimed, Revered one of the world, could it be? Yuan Tongtian, the six-eared macaque. And even more? Are there more secrets that this disciple doesn't know? I have already told you clearly about the karma between the two of them. This matter has nothing to do with them. Of course, it's not absolute that it has nothing to do with them. Their karma can be considered as the last straw that broke the camel's back. Mahavairakana revered Buddha said faintly. Suddenly he asked, By the way, Guanyin the Venerable, you were born in Tao sect. Do you think it is better to have karma or to avoid karma? Even though he didn't know why Mahavairakana asked such a question, Xiaohua still answered without hesitation. My Tao sect cultivates to cut off all desires and desires, to stay away from the mortal world, to not be tainted by even a drop of karma. That's right. Only by being untainted by the slightest bit of karma can one be free and unfettered in the 9 heavens. Only then can one surpass the 3 realms and transcend the 5 elements. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha nodded, This is the cultivation method of your Tao sect, but it is different from my Buddhist sect. Disciple has also followed Maitreya Buddha and cultivated some dharma. Xiaohua frowned and said, But disciple feels that the Buddhist sect similarly renounces sexual desires and stays away from the mortal world, and it's even to the extent that it's even superior to the Tao sect in these aspects. Although my Buddhism sect can't be compared to your Tao sect with the so-called 3,000 great ways. Mahavairakana explained, My Buddhism sect has a lot of cultivation methods. Otherwise there wouldn't be the 10 sects of Buddhism. Otherwise there wouldn't be the Mahavairakana revered Buddha who betrayed the Lane Temple and established the Shaolin Long Temple. At this moment Xiaohua had already somewhat understood that the Mahavairakana revered Buddha betrayed the Lane Temple not purely because of Yuan Tongtian's death, but more because of some schemes between him and the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. Therefore he didn't ask much and just listened quietly. He understood that the Mahavairakana revered Buddha now had a request for him, so the Mahavairakana revered Buddha would definitely tell him everything he could. Sure enough, the Mahavairakana revered Buddha said again, However, although my Buddhism sect cultivates a lot of cultivation methods, the root of it is the power of faith. But where does the power of faith come from? Naturally, it's from the believers of the Buddhism sect. Then how can we make the believers believe in us? Then we have to accept the believers' karma and accept the believers' pleas and prayers. Doesn't Guanyin the Venerable have Shao country? If the Venerable doesn't protect those people in Shao country and doesn't give them a way to live, will they worship the Venerable's statue? Will they offer the precious power of faith to the Venerable? Although the power of faith is the source of my Buddhism sect's enlightenment, every trace of power of faith has thousands of karma. You have obtained the faith, so you have to accept the karma. Similarly, my Buddhism sect also has thousands of methods to make use of the power of karma. Actually, the so-called power of mountains, power of sound, power of stars, power of karma, and even power of space in the Buddhist seal are all karma. But, Guanyin the Venerable, do you know how heavy a trace of karma is? Ah? Xiaohua was stunned. He looked at the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha also had his eyes closed, as if he was listening to the teachings without any expression. Xiaohua's heart moved and he understood tacitly, as light as a feather, as heavy as a mountain. Guanyin the Venerable is indeed one of the 4 great bodhisattvas of my Buddhism sect. These words are extremely wise. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha praised, if there is a great wish and supernatural power, then the karma is a feather, but if it can't be born, then it is a mountain. No matter if it's a feather or a mountain, in short, the karma that has to be born has weight. My Buddhism sect's Buddha Lord, Bodhisattva, and other Buddhas who have attained fruition all have a Buddha kingdom on their golden bodies. This is the moment when the Buddhas stepped into the lotus cleansing pond. It has already condensed. Hearing this, Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha hurriedly explained, don't be anxious, Venerable. Even if you're inferior to the lotus cleansing pond, the karma has already been attached to you, and the Buddha kingdom will definitely be born on your golden body. The lotus cleansing pond only cleanses the unrelated karma, allowing the Buddha kingdom to be born on your golden body in an orderly manner. Revered Buddha. Xiaohua said helplessly, what you said. Is it true? Don't lie to your disciple. Amitabha. The Dipankara archaic Buddha revered Buddha didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, Guanyin Venerable, the revered Buddha's heart is the entire Buddha kingdom. Although you're a Taoism Mahayana and have always been hostile to my Buddhism sect, in the eyes of the revered Buddha, all creatures are equal. Now that you've attained fruition, you're a Buddhism disciple. When the revered Buddha heard this, he also clapped his hands and praised you at the Thundersound Temple. All right. Xiaohua waved his hand and said with a smile, this disciple has been miserably schemed against by others, so I have to be careful all the time. Please don't blame me, revered Buddha. The Immortal Emperor and the Dragon Island's elders are all meticulous people. They bear heavy responsibilities, so naturally they have to consider more. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha smiled and said, actually sometimes I can't help myself. Forget it, let's continue. Since the Buddhas who have attained fruition bear the Buddha kingdom on their golden bodies, then the power of karma within the Buddha kingdom is the Buddha's Buddhism power. However, since there is karma, the Buddha kingdom also has weight. The more karma within the Buddha kingdom, the greater the weight. If the weight of the Buddha kingdom exceeds the limit that the Buddhas can bear, the Buddha's golden bodies will be in danger of collapsing. This disciple somewhat understands. Xiaohua was somewhat enlightened and nodded, saying, previously this disciple felt that the Buddhist sect's cultivation of Buddhism, the ability to condense relics, the 9 transformations golden bodies, and the ability to interfere with reincarnation was very mysterious. However, from the perspective of the Tao of Karma, all of this is within the Tao of Karma. Whether it is the previous life, the current life, or the next life, all can be seen from the river of karma. After that, Xiaohua explained his own understanding. Moreover, he had already faintly sensed what the Mahavairakana revered Buddha wanted to say. Sure enough, the Mahavairakana revered Buddha nodded and said, revered Buddha is right, but the Tao of Karma and the Tao of Reincarnation are still different. My Buddhist sect's cultivation is definitely not as simple as you think. Even this revered Buddha doesn't dare to say that this revered Buddha is well versed in the various techniques of my Buddhist sect. How is that possible? Xiaohua asked curiously. The revered Buddha is the leader of the Buddhist sect. How can you and I know the secrets of the Buddha kingdom now? The Mahavairakana revered Buddha said very mysteriously. Xiaohua understood. It seemed that although the Mahavairakana revered Buddha was a doppelganger of the 9 transformations, since he fell into the realm of the 4 great continents, not only were his abilities restricted, even his cognition was also compressed. This Mahavairakana revered Buddha was not the complete Mahavairakana revered Buddha. Seeing that Xiaohua was silent, the Mahavairakana revered Buddha said again, my Buddhist sect's Arhat can borrow the power of karma to interfere with karma and reincarnation, but just like your Tao sect's cultivators casting spells, there will be a backlash force. When this force is added to the Buddha statue's golden body, it will increase the weight of karma and the weight of the Buddha kingdom. That day this revered Buddha imprisoned Yuan Tongtian and already interfered with Yuan Tongtian's karma. And Yuan Tongtian was killed by Ananda, which intensified this karma. This karma even involves revered Buddha. Therefore this revered Buddha's golden body actually collapsed in an instant. How is this possible? Xiaohua was even more shocked. He looked at the Mahavarakana revered Buddha in disbelief and asked curiously, "Revered Buddha, how much karma can your golden body bear?" "Revered Buddha, don't you know?" Yes, this revered Buddha was also abnormally shocked at that time. The Mahavarakana revered Buddha nodded and said, "This revered Buddha controls the Buddhist sect in the Elysium, so naturally I can bear the karma of the entire Elysium. How could there be signs of my golden body collapsing?" Therefore, the moment this revered Buddha's golden body collapsed, this revered Buddha immediately calculated karma. Until now, this revered Buddha was alarmed to discover that the karma of the Elysium has already changed a lot. The weight of the karma of the 3 continents has already surpassed the karma of this revered Buddha's golden body. Chapter 47:11. Who? Xiaohua asked without hesitation. Then he asked in surprise, "Revered one of the world, are you suspecting me? Although the 3 continents are huge and the believers in the Pure Land world are like ants, I can see the karma of everyone." The Mahavarakana revered one did not answer. Instead he continued, "Even the elders of the dragon race, the great sage of the great sage hall, the immortal emperor of the immortal palace and even the masters of the stars and moons. Of course this is only karma and nothing else. Revered one of the world is too powerful." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "You can even peek at Fairy Xing Yu. The Mahavarakana revered one shook his head slightly. "Revered one is wrong. I'm not peeking. Anything that involves my Buddhism will have karma. I only see the karma. I'm just joking. Please don't mind me, revered one of the world." Xiaohua hurriedly smiled and said, "Who do you think it is?" However, ever since the birth of the primordial chaos ancestor and the failure of Guan Yin's longevity stabilizing fruit, I suddenly realized that there's some unknown power in the karma flow. I've searched the 3 continents and there's actually someone who can't see through karma. The Mahavarakana revered one continued, "Revered one is one, Maitreya Buddha is one, Yuan Tongtian is one, Chuanzang is one, Ananda is one, Devouring Heaven is one, Namo Mahavati is one, Samantabhadra is one, Thunder Deity is one, Heaven-defying Thunder Phoenix is one, Literature Stream Palace Master is one, and there are even many Fortune Gate disciples." What? Namo Mahavati Buddha? Xiaohua was even more shocked and almost shouted, "He has nothing to do with me." The Dipankara archaic Buddha revered one smiled and said, "Revered one, please listen to the revered one's explanation. There are many secrets behind this." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiaohua hurriedly pressed his palms together. "The karma of the 3 continents can't be interfered with outside of the 3 continents. It can only be changed by being in the karma flow of the 3 continents." The Mahavarakana revered one continued, "The 3 continents don't have any spatial passageways connecting them to the outside world. Thus, if one wants to appear out of thin air, one can only enter the 3 continents by accident or through the golden body." Fairy Xing Yu. Xiaohua asked Xiaohua, "Or the revered one's birth in the 3 continents after Fairy Xing Yu? She is one of the karma of the 3 great continents?" When the Mahavarakana revered one heard this, he smiled but did not reply. He only said, "Ever since the Venerable One appeared in Longevity Town, our Buddhist kingdom has given birth to Namo Great Wisdom Manjushri, Namo Great Wisdom Samantabhadra, Namo Great Merciful Samantabhadra, and even Maitreya Buddha. On the surface, the Buddhism sect's glory is unparalleled, and it's in a state of great prosperity. However, I know in my heart that there are more and more things that I can't see through. There are bound to be changes in the Buddhist nation. It's just that this change came too quickly, and I was truly caught unprepared." "All right." Xiaohua looked at Maitreya Buddha of the World Honored One, and then said calmly to Mahavarakana of the World Honored One, "I presume that the Honored One already knows about what happened when the sutra-seeking extreme bliss ended. Chuanzang, Yuan Tongtian, Six-Eared Macaque, and Bodhi were all brought here by me from Dawn Rain Continent. Their karma will be borne by me. Those Fortune Gate disciples. Naturally they were also disciples' karma. That Namo Great Wisdom Samantabhadra, Heaven-defying Lightning Phoenix, and the Scholar Palace's master, I don't know. As for the karma change that Honored One mentioned, it might be my doing. After all, I'm also a Taoist Grand Ascension Stage cultivator, and I also know the art of divination. I might be able to affect Honored One's karma. Amitba, excellent, excellent. Mahavarakana of the world Honored One chanted Buddhist mantras happily. I'm very happy that Honored One is honest with me. However, your karma is yours and my karma is mine. Although you're a Taoist Grand Ascension Stage cultivator, you're not strong enough to change the karma of my Buddhism sect. Phoenix Sage? The Scholar Palace's master? Namo Great Wisdom Samantabhadra? Xiaohua frowned. It seems like they're the most suspicious. Not necessarily. Mahavarakana of the world Honored One shook his head. Ananda, Chuanzang, Devouring Heaven, the Scholar Palace's master, Phoenix Sage and the Fortune Gate's disciples. Their karma is unclear and they aren't strong enough to change the karma, especially when I'm not aware of it. Who is it? Xiaohua felt that it was difficult for him to make up a lie when facing the Mahavarakana of the world Honored One who could see through the karma of the 3 continents. I don't know who it is. Mahavarakana of the world Honored One still shook his head, but he immediately said with certainty, however, I know that the person who changed the karma must be from the sacred light world. I'm going to faint. Xiaohua face-bombed. Why is there another sacred light world? What kind of world is the sacred light world? Didn't you say that the 3 continents have no passageways to other worlds? Honored One, you don't know about the sacred light world? The Dipankara archaic Buddha stared at Xiaohua in disbelief. Xiaohua nodded, I really don't know. I'm only from the Dawn Rain continent. As for the Dawn Rain continent, forget it, I'll wait for you to finish before explaining. The sacred light world is a higher world, and it's the archenemy of my Buddha kingdom. Mahavarakana of the world Honored One explained, the sacred light world's cultivation method is similar to my Buddha kingdoms. They both use faith as the foundation and karma as the means. However, their karma is a little different. All their causes come from the Holy Father, all their effects come from the Holy Son, and all their karma comes from the Holy Spirit. The Holy Father, the Holy Son, and the Holy Spirit. The 3 of them are the ruler of the sacred light world. Under the 3 holy saints, there are angels and apostles, holy temples, saintesses, holy artifacts, and so on. Angels are divided into preaching, dispelling, and fighting. There's a saying of 3 levels and 9 ranks. The upper 3 levels are the holy angels, which are blazing angels, wisdom angels, and throne angels. The middle 3 levels are the holy sons, which are master angels, strength angels, and energy angels. The lower 3 levels are the holy spirits, which are angels of authority, archangels, and angels. The Mahavarakana of the world Honored One didn't describe much about the sacred light world, nor did he explain it in detail. However, Xiaohua frowned even more. He didn't expect that other than Taoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, the demon race and the dragon race, there was another sacred light world whose strength was comparable to the Buddha kingdom. Of course, it only lasted for a moment. Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. Since there was the Red Ocean domain where the Rainbow Sea God Seashell came from, and the 10,000 Demon domain where Little White came from, why couldn't there be another sacred light world? After all, there were too many realms in this world and there were even many lost realms. I thought that the cultivation method of the Holy Light realm was similar to that of the Buddhist sect. They both relied on faith. Therefore, the Holy Light realm and the Buddhist kingdom were mortal enemies. The 2 realms were constantly at war. Mercy appeared on Mahavarakana's face. And this war is actually not what the Buddha Lord and the Saint Ruler wanted. It's only because of their different beliefs and beliefs. Xiaohua rubbed his nose and said with a bitter smile, in that case, the revered one of the world suspects that there are angels from the Holy Light realm who used the Buddhist kingdom's passageway to infiltrate the 3 continents. Indeed. The Mahavarakana revered Buddha nodded. Because whether it is the Arhat of the Buddhist sect borrowing the holy light of the Holy Light world, or the angels of the Holy Light world borrowing the holy light of the Buddhist kingdom, they can perfectly conceal themselves and not be easily discovered by others. Furthermore, due to the war between the Holy Light realm and the Buddhist kingdom, many Buddhist and Holy Light passageways were affected. Our Lain Temple still hasn't received any news from the Buddhist kingdom for a long time. It's very likely that the Holy Light realm is using this opportunity to send angels to infiltrate our Lain Temple. In that case, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha is also suspicious. Xiaohua looked at the Mahavarakana revered Buddha with a smile. But why does the revered Buddha trust him so much? The Dipankara archaic Buddha, the Mahavarakana revered Buddha, and the Mahavarakana revered Buddha. These 3 great Buddha lords are the foundation of the Buddhist sect. The Holy Light realm's Saint Father, Saint Child, and Saint Spirit are also the same. No one else can replace them. Moreover, if any angel is willing to be born as the Mahavairakana revered Buddha, I will also welcome him. Because once he becomes the Mahavairakana revered Buddha, then he will be the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. He will be a disciple of the Buddhist sect, not an angel of the holy light realm. I don't understand. Xiaohua shook his head and said, if the revered Buddha suspects the Namo Mahavadi, why don't you directly interrogate him? Interrogation is a small path. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha opened his eyes and smiled, inviting him into the trap and taking advantage of the situation. Is the great path. Isn't it just an unbroken path? You don't have to make it sound so dignified. Xiaohua felt ashamed to be associated with him. However, after a while, Xiaohua came to his senses again and asked in confusion, but if it's just based on this guess, it's impossible for the revered Buddha to determine that the Namo Mahavadi, Samantabhadra, is an angel, right? If the Mahavairakana revered Buddha didn't descend, of course I can only guess. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha smiled and said, however, when the Namo Mahavadi, Samantabhadra, descended to the Thunder Sound Temple, he made a great vow to search for the Mahavairakana revered Buddha. What if this Mahavairakana revered Buddha is the reincarnation of a blazing angel? Yes. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He finally understood the Mahavairakana revered Buddha's scheme. The revered Buddha is preparing to use the Mahavairakana revered Buddha as bait? Then Xiaohua looked at the Mahavairakana revered Buddha and said in shock, you actually agreed? When Yuan Tongtian was killed by Ananda, I was in seclusion. Thus, I didn't stop this tragedy. The Mahavairakana revered Buddha nodded. And when I was awakened by Yuan Tongtian's karma, it was already too late. At that time I was extremely indignant. However, when I saw the revered Buddha's Buddhist kingdom collapsing, I immediately felt that something was wrong. At the same time, the revered Buddha hurriedly transmitted his voice to me and told me his suspicions. I didn't come from the sacred light realm. Naturally, I'm magnanimous and not afraid of temptation. The revered Buddha's plan was no small matter. I also thought about it for a moment. However, as the Mahavairakana revered Buddha, I naturally had to think about the future of the Buddhist kingdom. Thus, I took the opportunity to rebel against the Lain Temple. Of course, I also gained a lot when I was meditating. These gains were different from what the revered Buddha said. I also want to take this opportunity to spread it. Cast a monthly vote, cast a recommendation vote, collect a collection, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 47:12. Damn it. You two Buddha lords have fooled everyone in the world. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Amitabha, you're wrong. It's the holy light world that has fooled us. The Dipankara archaic Buddha said bitterly, if it weren't for the emergence of the other shore and the collapse of the world lord's golden body, I wouldn't have thought that the holy light world would be sealed off by the 3 continents. Hearing about the other shore, Xiaohua opened his mouth. He wanted to say something but he hesitated. Instead, he asked the Maitreya Buddha in his heart. After a while he frowned and said, Dipankara archaic Buddha, I'd like to ask, what is the other shore? The other shore is the holy light world's sacred artifact. The Dipankara archaic Buddha answered, from the perspective of mortals, this sacred artifact can open a rainbow bridge that crosses the sea of bitterness and leads to the other shore of nirvana. Xiaohua rubbed his nose and said, why does this other shore sound like a Buddhist artifact? The Buddha fruit's Buddhist artifact is similar to the holy light world's sacred artifact. The Dipankara archaic Buddha answered, if it weren't for us Buddha lords, the other Buddhas wouldn't be able to tell the difference. When the other shore appeared, the Immortal Palace and the Thunder Temple were in a terrible state. The 100 schools of thought instigated the Immortal Palace to wage war against the Thunder Temple. Many guardian heavenly kings who didn't know the truth also headed to the buried immortal continent to protect us. When the holy light world's sacred artifact appeared, the immortal emperor and I were both shocked. However, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was also listening to the Thunder Temple's lecture at that time. This matter had nothing to do with him. The Maitreya Buddha continued, however, because of this, I'm even more afraid that the holy light world is still hidden in the 3 continents. Cough cough. Xiaohua coughed and said, you don't have to test it anymore. The other shore is with me. Do you need me to take it out? Boom. In an instant, the entire Thunderclap Temple shone brightly. Countless Buddhist kingdoms were annihilated. Countless karmic forces enveloped Xiaohua and the other 3 supremes like waves. An unprecedented sense of danger appeared in Xiaohua's heart. A force that could destroy the heavens and earth quietly emerged within the Thunderclap Temple. Swoosh. The Maitreya Buddha didn't say anything. He took out the wonderful tree of 7 treasures and looked at the Mahavairakana Buddha indifferently. It seems that, even now, the revered one of the world still doesn't believe this Xiao. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. Lightning flickered around his body as he coldly looked at the 2 Buddha lords and said. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord spoke before the Mahavairakana world lord could. Lord, if you want the world lord to trust you, take out Paramitha and hand it over to him. You're a Taoist Mahayana realm cultivator, so it's useless even if you take the Paramitha. Randang, do you think I'm a child? Xiao Hua mocked him. Do you think I'll give you Higan just for your so-called trust? Who do you think you are? Your trust. This Xiao doesn't care for it. If it wasn't for the matter of the world-destroying ephemera, I wouldn't have come to Thunder Sound Temple at all. Mahavairakana, let me ask you. Do you know that the 3 continents and the Dawn Rain continent were originally on the same plane? They were originally called the 4 Great Continents, but because of the immortal realm, the Dawn Rain continent was separated from the 3 continents. Is there an immortal array in between? What? 4 Great Continents? Immortal array? The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord was shocked. How is this possible? Amit Ba. The Mahavairakana world lord chanted Buddha's name with an uncertain expression. However, he still shook his head and said, this is an ancient secret. I don't know. What a waste. Why would this Xiao waste my time with you? Seeing that the Mahavairakana world lord didn't know, Xiao Hua immediately moved and waved his hand at the Mahavairakana world lord, saying, World lord, let's go. Seeing this, the Mahavairakana world lord didn't say anything and raised his 7 wonders tree, brushing it towards the flame-like 1,000 layers of Buddha lights. Seeing the treasured lights of the 7 wonders tree rolling back all the Buddha lights, the Mahavairakana world lord sighed. Amit Ba. Then, along with the Buddha's name, the rolling Buddha lights quietly disappeared, and the world-destroying aura also dissipated like smoke. What? Xiao Hua looked at the Mahavairakana world lord and said coldly, have you thought it through? Are you ready to trust this Xiao? Amit Ba. The Mahavairakana world lord put his palms together and said, I don't trust you but the Mahavairakana world lord. I think that his choice is right. World lord. The Dipankara world lord was still worried and said in a low voice, we have been planning for so long. This Xiao Hua. He might be someone from the holy light world. I have my own plans. The Mahavairakana world lord replied calmly. Then, should this Xiao take out the Paramitha realm for you to see? Xiao Hua looked at the Dipankara world lord with a mocking smile. No need. The Mahavairakana world lord waved his hand and said, once the Paramitha realm aura is released, all my previous plans will be exposed. The holy light world angel hiding in the dark will definitely notice it. At this point, it seems that we have nothing to talk about. Xiao Hua didn't appreciate the Mahavairakana world lord's compromise at all. He said calmly, your Buddhism sect is playing with the holy light world angel, and this Xiao is still thinking about how to break the immortal formation. We have nothing to talk about. This Xiao is leaving. Mahavairakana world lord. You should return to the small exquisite temple and see if you can catch the tail of that angel. Don't be anxious, venerable. The Mahavairakana world lord smiled and said, what is the world exterminating mayfly you mentioned just now? What's with the immortal formation? Even. What's with the Dawn Rain continent and the 4 great continents? Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said calmly, previously this Xiao wanted to say it but you turned hostile. Now even if you want to know, this Xiao doesn't want to say it. The world exterminating mayfly is here, and the 3 continents have no way out. My fortune gate, your Buddhism sect, and his small exquisite temple. Everyone will be killed by the mayfly. The Dipankara world lord's expression changed slightly and said in a low voice, Venerable, the world exterminating mayfly is the strange insect we saw before, right? Although this strange insect is powerful, it doesn't have the ability to destroy worlds. I've already discussed it with the world lord. My Buddhism sect has the means to kill it. You wish. Xiao Hua had the Mahavairakana world lord's clone. Naturally, he knew the Buddhism sect's methods like the back of his hand. He wasn't sure if the Buddhism kingdom of the upper worlds had the means to kill the world exterminating mayfly, but he was sure. The Thunder Sound Temple of the 3 continents wouldn't have such means. The Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord's words only proved that he didn't understand the world exterminating mayfly's prowess. Then please enlighten me, venerable. The Mahavairakana world lord replied. Alright. Xiao Hua looked at the Mahavairakana world lord and stood in mid-air, telling him everything he knew. The Mahavairakana world lord and the Dipankara archaic Buddha world lord's expressions changed. They didn't expect the strange insect to have such a powerful background. They also didn't expect the four great continents to be separated by the Buddhism sect, Taoism, and the demon race. On the other side of the West Sea Immortal Formation, there was a continent where Taoism flourished. Amitabha. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on the Mahavairakana World Lord's face. He chanted, "I understand now." Oh, what does the World Lord understand? The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord asked curiously. Chuanzang Ananda. A strange expression appeared on the Mahavairakana World Lord's face. He chanted, Amitabha. Previously I already had some understanding. However, I couldn't understand why they insisted on going to the west. Now, after listening to the Guanyin Bodhisattva's explanation, I have some confidence. Amitabha. Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and said, "The World Lord is going to clear up my doubts." I came to the Thunder Sound Temple not only to ask about the Immortal Formation and the four great continents, but also to borrow the World Lord's ability to ask Jianghu and Ananda. What do they want? I can't understand. Within the Buddhism sect, there is a Buddha fruit that is more noble than the Namo Maitreya Buddha. There isn't one in the Buddhism sect, but it doesn't mean there isn't one in the Buddha kingdom. The Mahavairakana World Lord smiled and said, Guanyin Bodhisattva is also one of the four great bodhisattvas of our Buddhism sect. You should know about Mount Meru, right? Mount Meru? Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He thought of the Buddhist ruins in the Dawn Rain continent. Didn't he go to a place similar to Mount Meru? He even went to the Tusita heavens. The Maitreya Buddha World Lord said, the Buddha kingdom is composed of countless worlds. 1,000 worlds are called a minor kiliacosm, 1,000 minor kiliacosms are called a medium kiliacosm, and 1,000 medium kiliacosms are called a major kiliacosm. Combining the minor kiliacosm, medium kiliacosm, and major kiliacosm, they are called the 3,000 major kiliacosms. The lowest layer of each world is a layer of chi, which is called the wind wheel. Above the wind wheel is a layer of water, which is called the water wheel. Above the water wheel is a layer of gold or hard rock, which is called the golden wheel. Above the golden wheel is the land composed of mountains, oceans, and continents. Mount Meru is the center of this world. Mount Meru is the core of a world, its foundation, and even its existence. On Mount Meru, there are the palaces of the 33 heavens where Dishur resides. In the 33 heavens, there are the palaces of the Yama heavens. In the Yama heavens, there are the palaces of the Tusita heavens. In the Tusita heaven, there's a palace in the Euphoria multi-heavens. To the north of Mount Meru is the North Continent, to the east is the East Continent, to the west is the Aparagodania Continent, and to the south is the South Continent. The Maitreya Buddha World Honored One finally said, unfortunately there are countless worlds in this mortal world, but there are very few worlds that fit the criteria of the Buddhist kingdom. To be able to obtain a small kiliacosm is my Buddha's fate. To be able to obtain a middle kiliacosm is my Buddha's part. To be able to obtain a big kiliacosm is my Buddha's root. With the Buddha root, a Buddha will reach the realm of perfection. Give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 47:13. Previously I didn't know. I thought that the 3 continents only had the hidden immortal continent, the Pure Land world, and the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Now that Guanyin the Venerable comes from the Morning Rain continent, then this world must have 4 continents and Mount Meru. Mahavairakana Buddha nodded and said, this is a world of my Buddha kingdom. Motherfucker, I knew it. This interface is definitely not simple. Xiaohua pondered in his heart, but then he asked curiously, if Mount Meru is on the Dawn Rain continent, then Jianghu, Shakyamuni Buddha? The Mahavairakana revered Buddha only uttered these 5 words before he immediately shut his mouth. Ah? Xiaohua looked as if he was struck by lightning and almost jumped up. What did you say? Shakyamuni Buddha? Oh, how was this possible? Shakyamuni Buddha is not the Buddhist kingdom. The Buddha kingdom is a world. Nothing is impossible. Mahavairakana revered Buddha stopped Xiaohua's words and said faintly, there are Buddhas and devils on Mount Meru. There are Buddhas and Taoists in the 4 great continents. It doesn't matter if there is another Shakyamuni Buddha. Moreover, the Venerable One thought about it. If it wasn't for Shakyamuni Buddha, how could he have given up the Buddha fruit of Maitreya Buddha, the world supreme? That traitor Ananda actually followed him to seek sutras? Don't forget that Ananda is a 6-eared macaque in this life. He knows about creation and understands yin and yang. Perhaps he has already seen through something. Hearing the faint tone of Mahavairakana's revered one, Xiaohua's heart trembled. His tone was also unkind as he warned, I don't care what lure was in his previous life, and I don't care who he is in the future. However, he is my nephew in this life. If you dare to have any ideas about him and stop him from seeking scriptures in the West, I will be the first to come after you. I will also be the first to come after the Buddhist sect. The Dipankara archaic Buddha snorted coldly, disdaining Xiaohua's threat. The Mahavairākana revered sage smiled and said, "Be it the Shakyamuni Buddha, the Mahavairākana revered sage, or even the Buddha of Xuanji Mahavairākana revered sage, they are all Buddhas of the Buddhist sect. Even when Ananda blamed me that day, I couldn't bear to abandon him, not to mention that Xuanzang is sincerely praying to Buddha. How can I stop him? What if Jianghu is the angel of the holy light realm?" Xiaohua asked faintly. Don't forget that Jianghu didn't come to Lane Temple and didn't enter the lotus cleansing pool because she was afraid of exposing herself. Shakyamuni Buddha. How can an angel obtain it? The Mahavairākana revered one laughed. If he was an angel of the holy light realm, I would have been overjoyed. As for the lotus cleansing pond, the holy light realm also has a holy water pond. All angels are born from the holy water pond. The holy water pond is similar to the lotus cleansing pond. The lotus cleansing pond cannot distinguish between high-level angels. Disciple obtained the Paramitha in the dawn rain continent. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, it's also possible that the angel is in the dawn rain continent. This is not something that I can know. The Mahavairākana revered Buddha hesitated for a moment and said, however, if that angel isn't in the three continents, he can't change the karma of the Pure Land world. The revered one of the world's words makes sense. Xiaohua rubbed his chin and said thoughtfully, even the revered one of the world can't interfere with the karma of the dawn rain continent through the immortal formation. Presumably that so-called angel can't. At this point, Xiaohua asked unwillingly, that's not right. The revered one of the world, since it's the Buddha formation of the Buddhist sect, you are the Buddha of all Buddhas. How can you not know? The Buddha formation's arrangement may have been before or after I came to the Pure Land world. The Mahavairākana revered one replied, if it was before, I naturally wouldn't know. But even after that, my memory may be erased. The Buddhist kingdom or the world, everything is possible. 9 Transformations Golden Body. Xiaohua sighed, there are advantages and disadvantages. Amitabha. Yes, interfering with karma and meddling with reincarnation is undoubtedly a supreme ability. But the price to pay is also great. Sometimes, it's so great that it exceeds the imagination of all the Buddha masters. The Mahavairākana revered one side. The Lane Temple was silent. After a while, Xiaohua put his palms together and said, Amitabha, disciple came to the Lane Temple mainly for the world-exterminating strange insect, but I didn't expect. Disciple actually knows so many secrets of the Buddhist kingdom. Of course, disciple also thanks the 2 Buddha masters for their trust in disciple. However, disciple also wants to remind the 3 Buddha masters that whether it's the angel of the holy light world or the Shakyamuni Buddha of the Buddhist kingdom, they are not as important as the world-exterminating mayfly. If we can't find a way to break the immortal formation, the Buddhist kingdom will be destroyed. The 3 continents, the 3 rivers and the 4 seas, billions of living beings will turn into nothingness. Amitabha. I understand. The Mahavairākana revered one laughed. Guanyin the Venerable risked his life to come to my Lane Temple to send a message. How can I not know the importance of the matter? Only a cultivator like Guanyin the Venerable, who cares about billions of living beings in his heart, is the true Buddhist bodhisattva. My Buddhist choice is correct. Amitabha, disciple will take his leave. Xiaohua put his palms together. Revered one, disciple will also take his leave. The Mahavairākana revered one also saluted. After the Mahavairākana revered one and the Dipankara archaic Buddha revered one saluted back, the Buddhist lights in the entire Lane Temple slowly dissipated, and the great hall's door appeared once again. After exiting the Lane Temple, Xiaohua used the Mahavairākana revered one's ability to reveal himself in the sky near the great snowy mountain. However, Xiaohua didn't leave in a hurry. Instead, he frowned and looked at the snowy mountain peak. He asked curiously, Revered one, do you think the Mahavairākana revered one's words can be trusted? Will there be any problems with him? Or has he already turned into a devil? The Mahavairākana revered one shook his head and said, I don't know. All right then. Xiaohua smiled and said, you can accompany the Mahavairākana revered one to slowly play infernal affairs. I still have to. At this point, Xiaohua was short of breath again. Among the 4 great sacred grounds, he had been to the Dragon Island, the Great Sage Hall and the Lane Temple. Currently he only hadn't visited the Immortal Palace. However, he understood that the Immortal Palace didn't involve immortal formations. The possibility of there being records of immortal formations within was extremely low. After all, even the Two Pure Palace's master didn't know that the Dawn Rain continent his clone reincarnated into was the same as the three continents. What could an immortal emperor know? In other words, the records of immortal formations on the three continents had long been sealed and destroyed after the formation was set up. Until now, no one would know about this matter anymore. If Xiaohua wanted to find a way to break the formation, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. The Mahavairakana Revered One naturally understood the misery in Xiaohua's heart. He put his palms together and said, Namo Mahavairakana Revered One, do your best and leave it to the heavens. As cultivators who have the ability to protect the world, we must fight until the very last moment. We can't let the world suffer. I can't die yet. Xiaohua squinted his eyes and said, even if the three continents are completely destroyed by the strange insects in the end, I still have to think of a way to escape. Because I must send the billions of lives on the three continents back into the cycle of reincarnation. The Mahavairakana Revered One didn't know that all the lives killed by the world-exterminating mayflies couldn't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Xiaohua's heart was in a mess at this moment, so he didn't tell him. The Mahavairakana Revered One just nodded casually and said, rest assured, fellow immortal. At that time it won't be just you, there will also be all of us. Good. Xiaohua smiled and nodded. We agree to fight until the very last moment. Namo Mahavairakana Revered One. The Mahavairakana Revered One smiled and nodded. That's for sure. Soon after, the Mahavairakana Revered One returned to the exquisite temple. Xiaohua stood high in the sky, pondering where to go. Through the teleportation formation in the snowy mountain, he could directly return to the soaring Dragon Mountain range or head to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. If he flew to the South Sea, he could use the teleportation formation in the South Sea Dragon Palace to head to the West Sea Dragon Palace. Now the situation seemed to have reached a dead end. Xiaohua's thoughts of returning to the Dawn Rain continent had been completely crushed. Therefore, Xiaohua stood at the top of the snowy mountain, suddenly without a goal. He had a feeling of looking around blankly. Where should I go? The West Sea? The soaring Dragon Mountain range? Xiaohua, who was already a Taoist Mahayana realm expert and the supreme expert of the human race, suddenly without a goal, he was like a headless fly. Faced with only two choices. He actually didn't know which one to choose. In contrast to this kind of blankness, there was a heavy weight in his heart. Even the golden body of Namo Mahavairakana Revered One couldn't bear the weight of the sorrow in his heart. The sorrow for the billions of living beings, the sorrow for this Buddhist kingdom. After standing for a whole cup of tea's time, Xiaohua finally came back to his senses. He waved his hand and invited Princess Zixia out of the Xinhua continent. Princess Zixia glanced at Xiaohua with a shocked expression and said anxiously, Xiaohua, you. What happened to you? Me? I'm fine? Xiaohua touched his head and face in puzzlement and asked curiously, what happened to me? You? Looking at Xiaohua's soulless expression and the forced smile on his face, Princess Zixia only said one word, but she immediately understood something. She flew over, gently pulled Xiaohua's hand and placed it on her cheek. She said in a low voice, Xiaohua, don't be afraid. Even if the world is destroyed, even if this world completely disappears, I will still be with you. You are my only love in this life. Feeling the smoothness of Princess Zixia's face, as well as the scalding heat that followed, Xiaohua's eyes slightly changed. He secretly activated a secret technique and calmed his mind. Alas, what will come will still come. Xiaohua already understood why he was so absent-minded, why he was so worried about the billions of living beings in the three continents, and also why he was so easily disappointed. It was because the immortal ascension was imminent. Now was the peace before the great calamity, and his immortal ascension tribulation was mixed with the great calamity of the three continents, causing him to lose his Tao heart and honor. Looking at Princess Zixia's virtuous appearance, Xiaohua's heart was slightly warm. On one hand, he was glad that he could find such a considerate and understanding lover. On the other hand, he felt very guilty. After all, he couldn't accompany her for much longer. He was destined to let her down. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.